All right. Make sure you guys can hear me pretty good. Got my AC unit on. Hoping my mic is drowning that out. I'm trying to see why I got this glare over here. What lighting I have is doing that. All right. An epic presentation today. Still looking for, let me go. I'm not even at the bottom of my chat. That's why. Sound is good. Excellent. All right. I'm seeing some new names in there. So, yeah, somebody already got blocked. Video didn't even start. And the only reason I got blocked is because I'm allowed, I can go in my studio settings and I can click on anybody's name and it tells me their history on my channel. And I can look up and I can see all the comments this individual's made in the past. So when I see that my moderators have already blocked several of this person's comments, and the first thing I do is look on here and see that, oh yeah, because we know that old books always tell the truth. Well, that passive aggressiveness is you're not going to survive here in Archaix. So yeah, he's blocked, he's gone, and don't even care. Most people come into my channel are absolutely triggered because they just can't fathom the amount of material and time, the years it has taken to put this massive corpus of data together that's all self-referencing. That's what they don't get. I'm not cherry picking little data points out of books. Everything must fit. It must be cross-referenced. It must be multiple sources. This is what we do. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you today. I have 268 images to show you of old books. And interestingly, 100% of these have already been shared on my channel years after. Because remember, I just became a YouTuber 5 years ago. I've been in the publishing business for 20 years. So, yeah, I've had published books for 20 years. My thesis was put together before I ever even found any of the material I'm about to show you today. All of this is in addition to Chronicon, in addition to the Lost Scriptures of Giza, in addition to When the Sun Darkens, in addition to my third book, Nostradamus and the Planets of Apocalypse. These 268 images are in addition to Return of the Fallen Ones, Anunnaki, Homeworld, Shocking Secrets of Antiquity, Awaken the Immortal Within, and all 1,000 or so of my videos spread across YouTube and Archaix TV. This presentation is all the new material that I found as I was revealing all this data to you over the last 5 years. That's what we're talking about today. But before we get deep off into it, come join us in Houston for some. We're gonna have some good times. Already got some tickets selling. I know it was real short after Vegas, but Houston is in our backyard. We don't have to really prepare for those. So if you want to come to Houston and kick it with us, we got all kinds of activities planned. We'll be at a restaurant the night before. Mods, you can post that email to Elise, the events coordinator. Moderators, Blue Wrench moderators. Those of you need to email. I forgot what email it was. One of my moderators can remember. You need to email. I can't remember what email it was, but we're sending out some really nice gift cards. You're not gonna want to miss the bus. This is out of appreciation for the tight ship that you run in Archaix. We don't care if you share how much it is or anything, because here in Archaix we lead by example. Yeah, we may be the very first YouTube channel to pay our moderators. I don't know, but you guys need to email that email that you were given the other day so we can verify who you are, because too many people are just trying to get something free. But we need to verify who you are because these are going to be mailed to you. Also, the invitation was extended to some of the moderators that have been on Facebook for a long time. I'm not talking about new ones. I'm not talking about inactive ones. I'm talking about there's about 3 or 4 moderators on Facebook. Andrew Owino is one of them that was invited because He takes time out of his life to share everything I do on Twitter and put it on Archaix, and he doesn't have to do that. So I'm blocked. I'm blocked from Facebook. So I am unable to do this. So I do appreciate the efforts that people give. Also, if you look in the description box, you're going to see the all new Archaix Spotify link. So it's right there in the description box. And we have a young, beautiful errant soul sponsor for this video. Oh, she's sponsoring a heavy video. I promise you, especially Archaix veterans, you're going to go through this video multiple times before you're satisfied, because it is rich in all the Archaix concepts that we've discussed. And remember, everything you're seeing in this video are photographs of old books, the actual data, so you can see for yourself. And it's all in addition to all my published material from years back. This is just added information from more and more old books. All right. Let's see here. Let's see what she's got to say.
Your soul's awakening with hypnotherapy. Resolve trauma and complete shadow work in a fraction of the time with significantly less effort. Align your heart's wisdom with your mind's knowledge to be whole and complete. Fulfill your soul's mission to know thyself and exit the matrix. Embody your limitless self with the limitless hypnosis. Call or text +1 702 475 0764.
Well, I didn't even know. I know this woman. She's been to the Houston meetups probably twice. She was recently in Vegas with us. Awesome. I didn't know who this was until I saw it. Amazing. I do remember you from the Houston meetup. Specifically talked to you at Houston. I remember that. Maybe twice. All right. We'll visit that again before the end of the video, guys. And yeah, Otto Chenault. I know you never missed the Houston meetups, bro. I know she was there. I remember her. All right. Yeah, we're racking in those errant commercials. I'm going to wait to get 2 or 3 more of these errant commercials on, and then they're going to have their own page on archaix.com. The new revamped Archaix Nexus. Archaix.com. All ads from all errants are going to have their own little category there on the website. All right. Oh, I do have another announcement. I know a bunch of you that are subscribed to Cypher got a surprise in your email last night. I know for a fact because I spent over 6 hours, maybe 7 hours running the predictions. Yeah, okay, I admit I'm a couple days behind on the sports predictions, but it's no big deal. We'll start rolling those out tonight. But yeah, a bunch of you, some of you really gave me some homework. I thought it was going to be one per email. You know who you are. There's 3 of you who gave me some homework. I'm talking about ran a whole list of predictions on each email and sent me multiple emails. So you know what? I'm up for the test, guys. I signed up for this. I'm doing this beta testing for 6 months because I have to get this right, and I have no problem doing it for you. So yeah, I'm also aware that there's a Telegram group that just started where you guys that are subscribed can talk amongst yourselves, come up with ideas, and I think that's a genius idea. I think it's a genius idea. So anyway, any of you who got your emails from Cypher last night, man, and you can drop a message here in the comment section. AM1, how you doing, bro? All right. AM1, you have some prize footage, right? You and I need to talk because I turned the cameras off in Vegas. YouTube only saw an hour and a half of my presentation, but you and I need to talk because you have the only footage in the world of that other 5 hours I was talking. So we need hook up with me on an email, man. We need to talk. All right. So all this is done. I moved through I moved through all the announcements pretty fast. You guys know on May 17th. Man, I sound so different when the AC goes off. On May 17th, the Phoenix date. I will be attending virtually. I'll be attending virtually on the live with every 46 people at the pub with Danny and Allie in the UK. I'm also going on with I'm on some type of panel. I don't even know exactly what they got planned, but some type of panel with Rise Above. Martin Leakey will be with us, and that should be all my announcements. I want to get deep off into this video. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go straight into it right now. Thank you for joining me today. Oh, my screen says 618. That's a golden proportion. 618 people here. That's all good. All right. Let's go and share my screen. Oh yeah. We're going through it. Be prepared. Be prepared. We're gonna go. Listen, there's no reason for me to do a bunch of commentary. Not when I'm going through 268 images, and this is all material that just verifies and validates all this published Archaix material. So just to show you right now, so there is no confusion, these are the sources for every single quote out of every book and passage that you see. These are the sources right here. The History of Antiquity, right? It's from the 1800s. His Professor Max Dunker. An old 300-year-old book called Long Livers, A Curious History. And you got many of my Archaix veterans, you already know. You've seen these on my channel. Ragnarok, The Age of Fire and Gravel by Ignatius Donnelly. He's got another book in here. A Dissertation on Sacred Chronology, right here. This is from the 1800s as well. Here's the Long Livers. Here's a better Long Livers book right here. 1722. This was published in 1722, as you can see on the bottom. The Worship of Augustus Caesar, Alexander Del Mar. This is from the year 1900. Symbol, Sex, and the Stars, Ernest Busenbark. I've told you guys, you guys know. I don't need to go into that. Vandenbroek, The Myth of the Phoenix. This video blew a lot of your mind, a lot of people's minds. It even blew my mind when I read the video, when I read the book. It's like, what? How did I miss all this when I was putting my whole thesis together? Great Pyramid is Divine Message. Engineer, David Davidson and H. Alder Smith. Gigantic book. I've given free copies of this book out, 3 of them, to Archaix moderators right here. Lost Survivors of the Deluge, old book from the 70s that gives us the business. The Encyclopedia Britannica, 1911. I also have 1867 and 1892 editions on my wall. They don't change much. The changes were done after World War I and World War II. In Search of Ancient Astronomies. This is the most recent book. It's from the 70s too. This is my very most recent book, but it's got some incredible data. Here's the Encyclopedia Britannica, 1902 edition. Robert Graves, The White Goddess. You already know. I quote him all the time. Anacalypsis. Anacalypsis. I never can say that. Anacalypsis from 1836. We all know about Higgins. The Great Pyramids, Divine Message, H. Alder Smith. That's again the Jewish Encyclopedia, 1902 edition. I have the entire 1902 edition of the Jewish Encyclopedia, as I've shared before. Brilliant work. Secret Cities of Old South America, 1952, Harold T. Wilkins. Ancient Mysteries of South America, 1947, again, Harold T. Wilkins. He wrote all about the Phoenix without even knowing about it. The subject matter of his 2 books was showing that whatever phenomenon caused the Great Flood of Noah is the exact same phenomenon that caused the Ogygian deluge later. This is the subject matter of his deal. He separated the two cataclysms and said the sun went dark, the moon went red. Red blood, red sand, red mud, red dust rained from the sky during earthquakes. Volcanoes exploded and giant geysers of water shot up out the ground all over the earth. Yeah. Built before the flood, H.S. Bellamy, born 1901. I've told you guys much about his research. Moons, Myth, and Man, again, H.S. Bellamy. The white, okay, I already showed you the white goddess. Ancient symbol worship, influence of the phallic idea, don't get excited, in the religions of antiquity. Sun lore of all ages, a collection of myths and legends concerning the sun and its worship. That's from the 1800s. The lost language of symbolism. Oh, it's Harold Bailey. It's a massive book I have on the shelf behind me. Massive book. It's also from the 1800s. The Nag Hammadi Scriptures. We're going to see some pretty compelling stuff about Phoenix in here. Myths and Legends of Ancient Egypt by Lewis Smith. Again, he's a prodigy of research. Lewis Smith is awesome on the ancient world. I almost have his entire collection. Again, just like Ragnarok, Fire and Ice, we have Ignatius Donnelly right here with his most famous work, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. It is fantastic. Shadow of Atlantis. This is by Braggeen. It's pretty good. Secret Cities of Old South America, Harold T. Wilkins. That's just the inside page. I've already showed it. Mysteries of Ancient South America. I already showed that. Built Before the Flood. I don't know how I got those in there twice. How that flipped back like that. Babylonian influence on the Bible and popular belief. This is Palmer Smith. This is from this is 1897. The Sibylline Oracles, the Sacred Prophecies. This was published in 1713, well over 300 years ago. The Book of the Secrets of Enoch, 1896 translation. Mathematical, metrological, and chronological tablets from the Temple Library of Nippur, Sumerian city. This is 1906. The Phoenix, an essay. This is an amazing book right here. It's an amazing book. It too is from the 1800s. No, this is from the late 1700s. I'm sorry. Cyclical Delusions. We're going to be looking at this one again, 1871. This is the guy that showed all the scientific evidence that Ice Age is bullshit. And all the glaciation in errata is explained in a totally different way. He was a catastrophist. A general chronological history, air, weather, seasons, meteors in sundry places and at different times. It's a long title. That's a long title. I believe that is from the year 1737 or something like this. Pretty old. I do not know what that's doing in here. Apocalypse, Pseudo-Methodius, and Alexandrian World Chronicle. And I don't know what that's doing in here either. All right, let's see. That should have went somewhere else. I'm going to look at that here in a minute because I believe that goes somewhere else. Both of those go somewhere else. How they got in here, I don't know, but I'm going to put them in their proper place. Of course, Gerald Massey, The Light of Egypt. Oh, no, this is Thomas Burgoyne. Gerald Massey's is Ancient Egypt, Light of the World. This is The Light of Egypt. He's the one that talks about in the 1800s, he wrote about the dark satellite and the ancient ones that were imprisoned and going to be released in the tribulation period. One of my source materials right here, 1633. This was for one of the chronological books. The History of the Royal Society of London, 1701. We're almost done with the sources. This is the Annals of the Old Testament. Archbishop James Ussher, famous 361, 362-year-old book. There's the Long Livers again. A Vindication of the Sibylline Oracles. This is the second book about the Sibylline Oracles. This one's dated 1715 AD. That's over 300 years ago, 1715. Some of the things they said is amazing. Now, this is John Jackson. I have done like 3 different videos out of this book, Chronological Antiquities, or the Antiquities and Chronology of the Most Ancient Kingdoms. This is a master work of chronological data. Ancient history. Oh, that's just the opening of the book. All right, so we're done with sources. You can screenshot that all you want. We need to get out of there. We are absolutely done with sources. And let me find something real quick. Oh, yeah, I do want to show that. Definitely want to show that. Let me put it where it goes, because y'all are going to want to see that when that category comes up. All right, what's this other one? Okay. These are cycles. I believe these are cycles. Okay, 2 of these were put in the wrong place. All right, and the last one to get fit in. Man, speaking of the dark satellite, I just ran right into it. All right, let's begin. Let us begin. See, I got to see if y'all are seeing what I'm seeing. Okay. Here in John Jackson's material, we read, "It is certain that from the creation of the world to the flood, which happened according to chronologists about the year of the world, 1656. You see that number, 1656. And you also see the number. This is talking about pre-flood history. And it's also talking about and in the 600th year of Noah's age. So we have 1656, which is the Phoenix. It's the duration of the pre-flood world, 138 times 12, the Phoenix number, 138. Also, the Anunnaki Nur of 600 is mentioned right here in reference to a pre-flood timeline. The waters of the flood, which purified the earth in the year of the world, 1656, fell 40 days and 40 nights upon the earth, on which they continued 150 more when they began to diminish. Interesting, in Genesis, it says 5. There's 2 different passages. One says that the waters of the flood were on the earth for 5 months. Then it also, another passage says it was 150 days. So biblical chronologists have ascertained that because one passage says 5 months and the other passage says 150 days, then that means in the biblical chronology, a month was exactly 30 days. And if that's the case, the year would have had to have been 360 days, not 365. A cataclysm caused that. So in Hesiod, this is 800 BC. In Hesiod, the phoenix is the symbol of a cyclical event. What? You mean Jason of Archaix didn't make that up? There are such things as phoenix cycles? Amazing. The total lifespan of 12 phoenixes covers the duration of the present world period. From this it follows that in Hesiod, a fixed lifespan, and in parallelism with the sun, a periodic renewal are already assumed. Why is this important? Because in Hesiod's time, he said that his epic is a great year, and the great year was 12 phoenixes. Well, 12 phoenixes is 138 times 12. It equals 1656 years. You guys have seen my charts that show great cataclysms of the world in intervals of 1656 years. Hesiod knew what he was talking about. That the Bennu, this is a bird in ancient Egypt, that the Bennu is the prototype of the phoenix is further confirmed by the fact that the former word in Egyptian means also palm tree, just as the latter does in Greek. How far the Egyptian priest translated the symbolism of the Bennu into a legend, it would be vain to conjecture. That the common people did so is only what we should expect. And it is to be observed that the monuments have not yet shown any trace of the element in the classical legend which makes the phoenix a prodigy instead of a symbol. Its actual appearance at long intervals. The very various periods named make it probable that the periodical return of the phoenix belongs only to the vulgar legend. This is what historians were writing. They couldn't understand where a phoenix cycle came because it was so long that by the time it happened again, everybody had pretty much forgotten about it. Many commentators still understand the word coal. In Job chapter 29, verse 18, it actually translates as sand of the phoenix. This interpretation is perhaps as old as the original Septuagint and is current with the later Jews, whose appetite for fable, however, is often greater than their exegetical sagacity. That was a barb at the Jews right there for hyperbole and exaggeration. But it's really interesting that in the book of Job, when it's talking about Behemoth and Leviathan, and it's talking about the creation event and in the garb of cataclysms, it actually mentions the sand of the phoenix. What do you know about the phoenix? Red sand, red dust, red mud, red rain. It falls from the sky from the phoenix. Remember the color red and sand. So Robert Graves, the white goddess, in that text we find that the phoenix was a calendar beast. The phoenix is the ultimate authority on all things Greek antiquity, Greek legend, tradition, mythology, and comparative mythology with pre-Greek and surrounding Greek cultures. Robert Graves. He wrote that the phoenix was a calendar beast. It was associated to the calendar. Remember the Chinese zodiac. The old lunar zodiac of the Chinese has 11 ordinary animals. And then the 12th sign is the dragon, interchangeable with the phoenix. So Robert Graves wrote that the eagle represented the sun god, and the palm tree, was sacred to the great goddess, his mother. The sun had completed his great revolution, and the old sun eagle was therefore returned to the nest as the phoenix for the inauguration of a new phoenix age. There it is, an ancient belief that the phoenix represented cycles. What is a cycle? It's a yuga, phoenix age. In the Egyptian Coptic Nag, this is a text of this is the library of the Gnosis, the Nag Hammadi library. This is what we read in these 2,000-year-old Gnostic texts. When Sophia Zoe saw that the archons of darkness cursed her friends who were like her, she was angry. She came from the first heaven with all her power and chased the rulers from their heavens. And she cast them down into the sinful world so that they might dwell there as evil demons upon the earth. Does that remind you of anybody here presently right now? She sent a bird that was in paradise so that until the end of the age, it might spend 1,000 years in the ruler's world. The bird, a living creature endowed with soul, is called the phoenix, and it kills itself and revives itself as an image of the judgment against the rulers because they dealt unjustly with Adam and his generation until the end of the age. So Sophia sent the phoenix to keep the archons in check. And the descendants of the archons are humans living among us right now who deal with us treacherously because they dealt unjustly with Adam. And Adam is Adamu, and all those descended. So until the end of the age, What is the sixth seal of the apocalypse? It's the return of the phoenix, as I've shown over and over. That's the end of the age. Here's more on the Nag Hammadi text, the Gnostic text from 2,000 years ago. There are three human beings and their descendants in the world until the end of the age. There is the spiritual, there is the psychical, and the earthly. This circumstance is like the three kinds of phoenixes in paradise. The first is immortal, the second lives 1,000 years, and the third is consumed, according to what is written in the holy book. Likewise, there are three baptisms. The first is spiritual, the second is by fire, and the third is by water. As the image of the phoenix appears with reference to the angels, remember I've showed you guys one of the titles of phoenix in the ancient world was the angel of death. It appeared in the sky. So the water serpents in Egypt indicate those who go down for the baptism of a true human being. The two bulls in Egypt indicate a mystery, the sun and the moon, which represent Sabaoth, because Sophia of the world has been exalted above the sun and the moon from the time when she created them and sealed her heaven until the end of the age. The worm that is born from the phoenix also represents humanity. It is written of it, the just will sprout like a phoenix. The phoenix first appears alive, then dies, and then rises again as an image of what appears at the end of the age. These great images have appeared only in Egypt, not in other lands, indicating that Egypt is like God's paradise. And in the ancient pre-cataclysm world, that's true, because Eden was Giza. It is related. This is an ancient Arabian tradition, pre-Islamic. It is related. You know what? I don't need that right now. Turn it off. It is related that Ashidad, the son of Ad, ordered the construction of a terrestrial paradise in the desert of Eden, ostensibly to rival the celestial one, and to be called Iram after his great-grandfather. On going to take possession of it, he and all his people were struck dead by a noise from heaven, and the paradise disappeared. The Quran, speaking of it, says, Iram of the columns, the like of which has not been erected in these lands. The possibility of a cosmic disaster is here most apparent. What is being described here is in the pre-flood world, an architectural project was built, and then it was interrupted by a cataclysm. The structure was never finished. It was called Iram of the columns. This is the ultimate origin of Freemasonry, which takes its founder as Hiram Abiff. Ultimately, it was Iram of the columns, because the ancient pyramids were called pillars long ago. The word pyramid hadn't been invented yet, and pillars are just columns. Let's see, classical thinking. Are of the opinion that in classical thinking, cinnamon was inconceivable without the phoenix, because it was the phoenix that brought cinnamon from uninhabited places to the world of man. Where would this idea come from that the phoenix brought cinnamon to the world? Well, first of all, we need to understand things using old frames of reference rather than trying to impose a modern understanding on something that is antique, arcane, antiquated. And what I mean is when you think of cinnamon today, you think of cinnamon toast. You think of something that is sweet, it's good, it's delicious. But I'm going to tell you now, real cinnamon tastes like dirt. It tastes like dust. Cinnamon tastes terrible until you mix it with sugar. then it tastes delicious. So the red dust, red fallout from the sky that happens during the Phoenix phenomenon is the origin of the idea that Phoenix brought cinnamon to our world. Here's another one. Pliny and Avienus offer no real proof that the phoenix had from ancient times played a role in the legendary stories about cinnamon. But these two naturalists still linked the phoenix with cinnamon. That's why. This is exactly why, guys. I mean, you know what? I have a really good example. We know what this is. This is an antique oil lamp. Using our modern frames of reference, we understand glass. We understand the knob for the wick to bring the wick up. We understand the vessel on the bottom is a repository for the oil, and the wick sits in the oil. You light the wick, put the glass back on top. Not only does it give off a lot of heat, but it gives off enough light to do whatever you need to do. You can adjust the brightness and the amount of heat coming out by turning the knob, which extends the wick, allows more of it to burn. We know what this is because in the modern world, we can look at it and ascertain this is the use of frames of reference. But many people, do you see this wick out of this stone? This is solid stone that somebody bored a hole through. Do you see that hole? They bored a hole through that. Archaeologists, historians, naturalists, and people in their backyards digging around have found hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of these, and they find these stones with these holes bored through them, and it's a mystery. It's oh my God, look at this! They bored holes in these. These are ancient beads, but they're big. I don't understand. Some of them are really big. Some of them about this. Most of them about this size, and they're found all over the world. And because they're found, these dumbass archaeologists and paleontologists say, oh, well, you know, that's Neolithic because it was made out of stone. It's a primitive bore. So this is going to be Neolithic. We're going to say this right here is like Pleistocene. Oh, this is Ice Age. So it's so dumb. This could have been done easily just 50 years ago because this is an oil lamp made of ceramic. And it's very, very utilitarian. It is the exact same thing as this lamp. There's no difference. Because this wick goes right through this hole. Well, it would go through the hole if I hadn't so loose. There it is. This wick goes right through this hole, just like this. And this is literally your oil lamp in the ancient world. They didn't have a glass deal, but they could adjust the wick. They could pull the wick. They could do everything we do. This is an oil lamp, very primitive, but it still serves the exact same function. All right, so this is why we need. That's why you have to be so careful with modern frames of reference imposed upon ancient things. I mean, not everyone is qualified to mine data from old books. Yeah, it has nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with knowledge. There's a huge distinction. So let's move on. So, for God is not the author of confusion. 1 Corinthians 14:33. That many have sought to escape from the difficulty by regarding the detailed account given in the first of Genesis as not that of the original creation, but rather that of the recreation or reconstruction of a material world already existent. What? This was 125 years ago that this scholar in the 1800s wrote this. Genesis is not a creation account. It is a renovation of pre-existing materials that had just been wiped out in a reset, which is why Adam and Eve were naked, which is why they were told to be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. It is why they thought it was a new heavens and a new earth. Everything had been destroyed. Here it is. This is what he wrote right here. Plutarch tells us that Isis, in the minds of the Egyptians, was the female receptive part of nature. Osiris was the light. Typhon, that's the phoenix, was the darkness, the obscuration of the sun and moon, the sixth seal of the apocalypse. May 2040, the obscuration of the sun and moon by Typhon. Osiris was the fruit-giving Nile water, Typhon, the salt and barren sea. Osiris was moisture, Typhon was drought, the parching wind. Osiris was health, Typhon was disease. The view that the phoenix lives in paradise is also found in the rabbinical traditions. The bird whole, which was also called Malham or Maltum, was said to have been the only bird or beast to refuse the fruit offered by Eve, and for this reason to have been given the gift of eternal life by God. Here it is probably also assumed that this bird was allowed to remain in paradise after the fall. According to one tradition, after the fall of man, the Jewish phoenix went to reside in the mysterious city of Luz, that's light, to which even the angel of death could not gain admittance. All these concepts are interwoven. You have to understand, all this was written centuries after the knowledge of the phoenix was lost in a series of resets. They were putting it back together. Both the Bennu of Egypt and the phoenix functioned as symbols of the events and conditions belonging to the beginning of the world. Remember, my chronology, Phoenix appears 3895 BC, which is year one of the 1656 years of the pre-flood world. Phoenix wipes out a pre-existing world, and the survivors are the Adamu and Kava, Adam and Eve, and all their families. According to the Mosaic account of the 6 days creation, would really have to do with the reconstruction of the marred and disorganized earth, which the Creator reduced to order after the banishment of the fallen angels. Okay, don't take it out of context. This is just religiosity creeping into this scholar's work 125 years ago. You know from the Archaix research, references to fallen angels is just cargo cult phenomenon. It was a previous epoch of technologically advanced humans. With this may be compared the Babylonian legend of the revolt of a portion of the heavenly host. In the fourth book of the creation epic, Bel Merodach challenges Tiamat with the words, "Trouble on high thou hast excited." They also had arrived at the opinion held by many commentators that it was in order to restore the disturbed harmony of the universe and to fill up the gap left by the defection of the rebel angels that mankind was created. Good book here. Old book. My design in the following essay is to show that a comet, remember from previous studies, I show you comet is interchangeable with any unknown celestial body. Comet was the word that was used for almost 400 years by all these old authors, because they didn't have a lot of frames of reference for intruder world, intruder planet, or any type of astronomical anomaly. Everything was a comet. If it wasn't the sun, it wasn't the moon, it wasn't a fallen star, it was a comet. My design in the following essay is to show that a comet has been the cause of two grand catastrophes that have happened to this our earth for the punishment of its inhabitants at the fall and at the deluge. Which comet, it is my intention to prove as far as I am able, is the real phoenix of the ancients. He said that, not me. I didn't have any of this. I didn't have any of this data I'm sharing with you right now when I originally put my thesis together 20 years ago and had all my books published. Didn't have any of this data. All this is just adding to it. That upon man's transgression, the change took place, of which I believe a comet was the cause. Before I quit the subject entirely, I shall endeavor to show the probability there is of tracing the comet from the fall to the deluge. This man is absolutely correct. He's literally saying the phoenix caused the destruction at the supposed creation, and then came back and caused the destruction at the great flood. He is identifying the same phenomenon, phoenix, with both destructions, and he is correct. It is 1656 years apart, or 138 times 12. 12 visitations of the phoenix. He's right. As Noah and his family would see the comet before they entered the ark, they would, of course, make it known to their posterity after the flood. And also, what was the cause? I have before said that the comet which occasioned the change at the fall would likewise occasion the deluge. The fall of mankind has nothing to do with that bullshit Jewish version that mankind sinned and has a now acquired sin debt. That's how the Jews deal with everybody. It's always indentured servitude through the acquisition of debts. This is their religion. This is their politics. This is their social engineering. Everything is about debt with them. And when they created these religions, it was all about the fall of mankind. It wasn't a cataclysm that literally fell a technologically advanced super civilization, a golden age type scenario. No, they changed it to the fall of man was caused by humans. Therefore, you're born in sin. You're already an indentured servant, a slave of debt before your life has even began. That's the Jewish model. Mr. Whiston says, William Whiston was famous. He wrote some books. He actually worked with Edmund Halley for Halley's Comet. He was a chronologist. But Mr. Whiston says that Hevelius, another chronologist, in his Comatographia, bears testimony of several ancient authors who speak of the direful effects of the comet that appeared in the reign of Typhon. That's the phoenix. Typhon the fiend. That is, at the deluge, or immediately before it. He says further, that in ancient books and records there are accounts of a comet's passing by at the flood, at the deluge. Amongst the many things delivered by Noah, I believe the phoenix to be one. He's saying that the pre-flood civilization passed on their knowledge of the phoenix phenomenon to the survivors. This latter description brings us to a very important peculiarity. In almost every myth, the dragon or serpent is connected with water. So much so, in fact, that it often becomes the regular symbol for water. In a very great number of myths, also, the dragon is prominently and intimately associated with the worldwide catastrophe, the deluge. Hence, mythologists have taken dragons merely as personifications of the flood, the deluge. This is the case with the Armenian feathered monster Van and the Egyptian phoenix. The Egyptian name of the latter is Bakbahu, which also means to water or to flood. The hieroglyphic sign of the phoenix is followed by 3 parallel wave lines, the water symbol. This is important, guys, because the modern solar zodiac has hidden this. I have books in my library I have yet to show you. My publisher recently sent them to me. I'm going through them now. It's 2 books that show that the water bearer was created. The symbol was created recently, but the original sign was the phoenix. And it's in these older zodiacs. It's blown my mind. But these are videos yet to come. And that's what it's saying right here. It's saying the exact same thing right here. The hieroglyphic sign of the phoenix is followed by 3 parallel wave lines. That is Aquarius in the zodiac. But according to this, that was the Egyptian hieroglyphic for phoenix. I don't know what this is. The Indians of the New World conceived that hurricane, the origin of the word hurricane, the mighty fertilizing wind, passed over the waters of chaos in the form of a huge bird, and so called the earth into being. That's the phoenix. That's the rock. The ancient American, the New World, called it the rock or the thunderbird, because every time the phoenix appeared in the sky, it roared. It had this loud, thunderous sound came from the sky. They called it the thunderbird. In the Finnish Kalevala, it has the same idea. Compare the myths of the world egg, the account of the creation given in the Rig Veda. So you guys have seen over and over in old representations and old books and symbols, you've seen the symbol of the egg and the serpent wrapped around it. Well, the egg is what is the new world that is being born out of the phoenix destruction. The phoenix is the great firebird. It destroys the previous world, but it doesn't just leave it barren and desolate, tohu wabohu, according to Genesis. Total an empty, waste, and void. Now, every time it comes and destroys, it actually fertilizes and lays this awesome egg that is a symbol for the new world and the fertilization of the new world. Well, the symbol of the egg later was the egg with a serpent wrapped around it. So you can figure out what that means. Same thing as the serpent wrapped around the holy tree. The tree of Eden from the very beginning, the tree of life. The serpent was guarding the way. This is Adolf Ehrman, Life in Ancient Egypt. I have this book in my library. They regarded the sea as impure and under the dominion of the spirit of evil, Set or Typhon, the phoenix. The determinative expressive of evil is added to great water, the Egyptian word for the sea. So in the book of Psalms, we have references to the great behemoth, the chaos monster, and Typhon, the dragon overwhelmed by Zeus' thunderbolts, one with the Phoenician Zephon. Zephon is Typhon, but you can actually see Phoenix in Zephon. You see it right here. That's the Phoenician Phoenix right there. Struck down beneath the waters of the sea. In all these cases, man, Phoenix is Typhon, is Behemoth, and Leviathan is Tiamat, the origin of Phoenix. So we just finished one file. That is the Phoenix in Genesis file, going straight to the palms. Some of these files don't have hardly any in there. So the name Phoenix has not yet been completely explained. Of the various meanings the word Phoenix can have in Greek, the following are relevant: purple, Phoenician, and date palm. Why the date palm? Horapollo stated later that among the Egyptians, the palm was a symbol of the year because it gave forth 12 branches in a year, one in each month. So the phoenix, as Robert Graves said, the phoenix was a calendar symbol. Well, this makes the palm tree a calendar symbol as well, linking it to cycles of time connected to the phoenix. From ancient times, the palm had been seen as a symbol of victory, and the phoenix shone perched on it is not, as Ovid and Lactantius will have it, a bird preparing for its death, but rather a symbol of eternal life in the heavenly paradise, where the redeemed have received the palm of victory. So these associations to the phoenix, look, the phoenix is the destroyer of our world. Over and over destroys our world. But is it? But exactly is it? I've documented some really strange things about the phoenix phenomenon. But according to the Gnostic versions, Sophia sent the phoenix to periodically destroy the surface world to keep the archons in check and their offspring, which are right here among us, ruling over us, deceiving us. And the phoenix was really to keep them in check, because maybe if they're unchecked, they grow so powerful that they just enslave the entire world. But it seems like that's not the case. It seems like they do fear the phoenix. As all this data I've shown on my channel, what are the elite doing right now? They're building bunkers all over the world, something that we've shown they've done many times in the past. Why? Because they're about to hide. All right. Moving on. Let me check my chat before we continue. Thank you for the 138 pounds, man. Much appreciated. A lot of my donations lately, they're going to my moderators. I'm sending gift cards to all my mods. All right. Moving on. We got some really profound things to look. We're just at the beginning, guys. We got some deep stuff to look at. It was primarily a symbol indicative of a reality beyond that of the individual, but including him and forming the true basis of his existence. This is the phoenix. It was a symbol. An important factor in the present investigation is formed by the discovery that the phoenix had a symbolic meaning in the oldest and previously unexplained text in which the bird is mentioned, in Hesiod. Remember, in Hesiod, its meaning was that every 1,656 years, it reset the world. It is remarkable to note that certain texts were mentioned in earlier times and then evidently forgotten by later scholars. This is what I show in Archaix all the time. All the time. When we're researching the text from like the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th century, we find they have forgotten so much. But when we go back and read the text from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century AD, we find that they remember so much more about what happened in the ancient world. Various representations of the phoenix have been discovered. Since almost every representation of the phoenix has a specific symbolic meaning, its occurrences in art are of great importance. When one of my moderators, please put the link to Occultus Mysterium. It's a 4-hour video where I'm showing you the phoenix in hundreds of artistic depictions, showing you that in the late medieval to the early Renaissance period, whoever did all these woodcuts, engravings, whoever did all these illustrations and paintings and put the phoenix in all these different, in the artwork, in sculptors, they knew exactly that the phoenix was the symbol for resets. They knew this. It's all in the artwork. They knew it was linked to Genesis because they show Adam and Eve in the tree and the divine mountain in a bunch of these in a bunch of this artwork. Occultus Mysterium. If you haven't seen it, it'll blow your mind on just how much knowledge of the phoenix has been hidden from the public in plain sight. In the classical world, the phoenix became a symbol of rebirth of the soul, and later, among the Christians, of the resurrection of the flesh. In most cases, the discussion or mention of the phoenix is concerned not with the animal world, but with the human world. And it can only be concluded that the phoenix fulfilled an important function with respect to the meaning of human existence. You hear this? These scholars 100 years ago knew that the phoenix was a symbol for something that deeply impacted the human experience, and it wasn't simply some bird. that came and destroyed the world and laid an egg that was the symbol for the next generation. No, it had deeper meaning because it was a symbol of reset. So a lot of people, because my channel is one of the first, if not the first, to bring this information back into the public arena after centuries of being lost. The phoenix was thought as a mythological firebird and all that. Well, here are citations that I did not have access to when I published 3 books about the phoenix cycle. Here's all these references I found since I started my channel. That the phoenix represents a period of time. Herodotus states that he had heard from the Egyptian priests that the phoenix appeared every 500 years in the temple of the sun at Heliopolis to bury its dead father. From this, it was concluded that a phoenix period of 500 years played an important part in the thinking of the ancient Egyptians, but 500 years was only a guesstimate. They were just emerging from the great Mediterranean Dark Age. They had lost all literacy. According to Pliny, Manilius stated that the bird lived for 540 years, and this was accepted as a definite fact by Solinus. 540 years is much closer than 500 years. Some of the Pliny manuscripts mention an age of 560 years. 560 years is almost a bullseye for 552 years of Phoenix, as I've shown. So we've already seen the 12 Phoenixes. I've already shown that one. This is 1924. Engineer David Davidson. He recorded his own chronology of the world because he didn't trust the Hebrew one. And in his, he recorded that in the year of the world, his system was called AK, which is Anno Calendaris. It's year of the calendar. He recorded that the world was destroyed in the year 1656. He did his own chronology because he did not trust the Hebrew. 1656, that's the year of the Great Flood. He identified, get this, he identifies 1656 Anno Calendaris with the Phoenix chronology. You just can't make this stuff up, guys. 1924. The Phoenix chronology. That's David Davidson. The Phoenix chronology again, that's David Davidson. Oh, he even wrote about Phoenix cycles right here. This is David Davidson, 1924. He wrote about Phoenix cycles. And there's his the Phoenix cycle depended upon the ancient fixed calendar and its system of chronology. And he called it Anno Calendari right here. Independent research, same conclusion. He didn't know anything about the 138-year periodicity of the Phoenix. Nothing. Even as early an author as Tacitus, he's Roman, pointed out that there were different traditions concerning the age of the Phoenix. And it's because the world was waking up. The Alexandrian library was exploding and people were learning about the Phoenix and the Phoenix histories, but nobody really had an accurate chronology. Synesius, who remarks that those who achieve contemplation by their own efforts are rarer than the Phoenix by which the Egyptians measure eras. So this is just another reference to the Phoenix being a time period. One of the oldest components of the Phoenix myth is the fixed cycle after a given period, which is always of the same length. Remember, the Phoenix cycle is 552 years, which is 138 times 4. 3 of these Phoenix cycles is 1656 years. The duration of the pre-flood world before the cataclysm. We have already seen that the arrival of the Phoenix in Egypt is an indication that a certain fixed period has again been completed. Lactantius too draws attention to this when he writes that immediately after the coming of the phoenix, its image is carved in consecrated marble, and a new inscription is made to record the fact of its appearance and the day on which it occurred. This is a practice from the ancient world. Someone has gathered those statues up and destroyed them or hid them away from the public. The period between two world catastrophes could also be seen as the Great Year. Hesiod said the Great Year was 12 phoenixes. Well, 12 phoenixes is 12 times 138, 1656 years. Oh, here's the Hesiod 12 phoenix reference. We've already seen it, though. The Great Year of the classical world arose from the purely mythological conception of a cosmic periodicity ultimately traceable to Babylonia. Originally, it had nothing to do with astronomy and probably as little to do with astrology. It was with the duration of this great year that the age of the phoenix was identified in classical times. This is clearly expressed in Pliny's reproduction of Manlius's ideas about the phoenix. The life of the phoenix coincided with the great year. Can you imagine if I'd have had access to all this in these books that I'm quoting from? If I'd have had all this in prison when I published my first 3 books about the phoenix, can you imagine what directions how packed those books would have been if I just had this data back then? Classical phoenix myth, according to which the phoenix became a symbol of the great year because the Bennu phoenix was a symbol of the Sothic period in ancient Egypt. They were just trying to merge it with their seasonal calendar. The speculations about the bird's lifespan and the periodic appearances related to it must have originated in Egypt between 1000 and 700 BC, before Hesiod wrote about the 12 phoenixes being a great year. Interesting about 700 BC, a lot changed in the sky. We'll get to that. Horapollo stated later that among the Egyptians, the palm was a symbol of the year because it gave forth 12 branches in a year, one in each month. We saw that earlier too. In a recent study on Egyptian chronology, which was written by Boker, it is assumed that the Egyptians knew a phoenix period, and also that the entire later symbolism of the phoenix had already taken form in the Egyptian notions concerning the Bennu. Here's another scholar talking about the phoenix period was well known in the ancient world. We're the ones that forgot it. Rundle Clark states in many places that the Egyptian texts make no mention of a periodic appearance of the Bennu. Nevertheless, he says the basis of a belief in a phoenix period, then both historical and mythological, was current during the Middle Empire, if not before. Yeah, the belief in the phoenix is ancient. So the 552-year period in Armenia, the first of these cycles began BC 552. The third one, fourth one, what is it? But it appears that 2 or 3 years after the reform of the Persian calendar by Omar Khayyam in AD 1079, the Armenians preferred to compute time by divine years of 532 instead of 552 years, thus following the example set them by the Jews, namely of obliterating by means of a lunar reckoning the venerable but now despised memorials of the Buddha. So we have another quote about this Buddhic cycle. This is an older cycle that the Roman Catholic Church specifically did away with when they created the Anno Domini calendar. It's right here. The dominant measures of the divine year were the Brahmanical of 658 common years, the Buddhic of 552 years. That's highly specific. It's 138 times 4. And the later Boudic or Dionysian, this is the Jewish version of 532 years. Why would the Jews change the calendar? Since ancient times, the cycle of 552 years was so important, all of a sudden the Jews introduced a Paschal cycle called of 532 years, and then imposed it on Europe. This is the origin. This is the absolute origin of the Anno Domini calendar, 526. But we'll get to the Jewish calendar deal here in a minute. I have said before that the comet which occasioned the fall at the flood would likewise occasion the deluge, which may be perhaps objected to by many because the 3 periods between both eras do not exactly agree with the chronology of that time. That's his opinion, because they do. He's saying there's 3 periods of the phoenix between the fall and the flood. That means he's already admitted that the pre-flood world was 1656 years. 1,656 years divided by 3 is a phoenix cycle of 552 years. You can't make this stuff up. This man just said between the fall of Adam and Eve and the flood was 1656 years, and it was 3 cycles of the phoenix. That makes a cycle 552 years, whether he agreed with that or not. I think it in the first place that the comet's periods must have been shorter before the flood than they have since. The reason he's saying this is because he estimated that the phoenix cycle was 575 years. So the Dionysian cycle or divine years mentioned by Al-Biruni, a Muslim writer about 1,000 years ago, who says that the Jews had a cycle of 532 years called the major cycle, consisting of 6,580 months. It was a lunar system. This is unquestionably the same cycle. It is the degenerate descendant of the Boudic divine year of 552 years. Told you guys, you can't make this shit up. Tracy Twyman wrote a book called Moravian Mythos. She is now dead. Her books are classics. In there, she cites Legends of the Jews, a very old book. But in there, in Legends of the Jews, she quotes, other angels Jacob saw on the ladder included the 2 angels who had been sent to Sodom. For 138 years, they had been banished from the celestial regions because they had betrayed their secret mission to Lot. 138 years, these angels wouldn't be seen. Remember, Phoenix was called the angel of death. That's what visited Sodom and Gomorrah, the angel of death. Phoenix was called the angel of death over Egypt. He was the angel of death. Now, Phoenix appears every 138 years. These angels are banished for 138 years. For 138 years, Phoenix is gone too. And as I showed you in the beginning of this video, Phoenix was associated to the angels. It's like angel technology. The epic of the mundane era of the Mayas, on the other hand, was established in the year 3373 BC. Their calculation went by heptads of Bactans of 2760 years. 2,760 years was a period known to the ancient Maya. It is precisely 552 years times 5. Like I said, you can't make it up. Check my chat before we go into the next file. See how we're doing. Give me a good old drink. Yeah, man. That's right, Otto. That's right, Otto. You can't make it up, man. This is the Archaix data. It all fits. It's not piecemeal. It's not cherry picked. And remember, none of this I'm sharing with you in this video is even in my published books. My published books cite other historians, other archaeological monuments, stelae, ancient chronographers, historians. My published books show you the history of the world on the Phoenix phenomenon. But I didn't have any of this data then when I published these books. This is all new information I discovered as I was sharing all this stuff on my channel. In the very beginning of the video, I showed all the books I'm citing. The very beginning of my video shows all the books from which all these citations come from. All right, let's get back to it. Let's go back to it. Let's get here, share screen. Entire. All right, sharing my screen. So according to Heraclitus, the soul takes on a new incarnation every 1080 years. That's a very specific number, 1080. In my published books, I got a whole chapter, almost a whole chapter on spell text 1080, coffin text 1080, and the number 1080 where it's found in the ancient world, in 10,800 and 108,000, and what it means, and the base denominator 108. So it follows from this that uncertainty could arise concerning the correct interpretation to be given to the phoenix as a symbol of the soul in Hesiod's riddle. In Hesiod's version, the raven, with its 108 generations, was interpreted as an indication of the earthly life of man. 108 years. The phoenix as a symbol of the, oh my God, peregrination. Well, you're going to have to help me with that one. That's an old word there. Peregrinations of the soul after death. 972 years. And the nymphs as a symbol of the totality of oh my God, I'm going to let y'all say it. Within the great cycle of the soul, 9,720 years. The small cycle, the period between two successive incarnations, was thus put at 1080 years. And the great cycle at 10,800 years. The altar of Agni, which is an ancient memory of the Great Pyramid in Egypt, pyramid, fire in the middle, altar of Agni, the altar of fire in the Sanskrit records. Altar of Agni had 10,800 bricks. Heraclitus wrote that there was 10,800 fixed stars in the heavens. Coffin text 1080. Literally talks about a monument dropped from the sky into the desert. It's talking about the Great Pyramid. That's coffin text 1080. You guys know that the Great Pyramid is self-referencing in its geometry because a two-dimensional figure of 5 points is a pentagram. That pentagram is made of 10 lines that are at 108 degrees apart. Each line is 108 degrees from the next. When you go all the way around, you have a 5-pointed star. But a 5-pointed star is only two-dimensional geometry for a 5-point image. If you render a 5-point image into 3-dimensional geometry, you have 4 at the base and 1 at the top. It forms a pyramid, and it's only possible with 5 points. It's only possible. So the number 1080 conceptually represents a 3-dimensional geometrical pyramid. This is interesting because the Great Pyramid was finished in the year 2815 BC after 90 months of construction. 90 years of construction beginning in 2905 BC. It took 1080 months to finish the Great Pyramid project. But 2815 BC, the 1080th month, ended in 2815 BC, which was the year 1080 of the old world's calendar. You can't make this stuff up. You can't even mess the chronology up. Every bit of this fits perfectly in Chronicon and shows you forward and backward how all of this is self-referencing, every bit of it. In the 1,656 years of the pre-flood world, the Great Pyramid was finished in the 1080th year. I believe that is exactly 666 years until the Great Flood. Between the death of the individual and a new incarnation, which means that from the birth to birth, the soul passes through periods of 1080 years. Okay. So yeah, the number 1080 is associated to the Great Pyramid. It is associated to living life sims. It's associated to resurrection. It's associated to immortals. So this number 1080 fuses the concepts of humans being spiritual beings connected to the Great Pyramid and overseen by the Phoenix. This one number basically weaves those concepts together. Okay, this was the case under Constans I, 337 to 350 AD, and Constantius II, who ruled in the West and East respectively. The Phoenix was shown standing. Oh, this is numismatics. This is ancient coins. The Phoenix was shown standing on a pyramid-shaped group of rocks. Later, in the second half of the 5th century, an unusually talented mosaicist in Daphne, near Antioch, showed the Phoenix in the same way, standing on a pile of rocks arranged in the form of a pyramid. How interesting that this artwork of the Phoenix on a pyramid was at the city of Daphne, which contains the root words for Daphne, the Phoenix. It just goes on and on and on. All right. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Man, we're about halfway done. No, we're not. No, we're not. I forgot. I got one file folder that's packed. So, moving on up. Remember, at the beginning of this video, I showed every single source for all these quotes, every book, that the lunisolar year of 12 months, each of 30 days, and the whole consisting of 360 days, was the original stated year of mankind, and was in the most ancient times used by the Egyptians, Chaldeans, Phoenicians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans. The ancient year was 360 days. They didn't make a mistake. They weren't dumb. We can't even replicate some of the buildings that they left behind. They weren't dumb. The year wasn't 365. That was caused by a cataclysm. Diodorus Siculus relates that at the sepulture of Osiris, the priests who were appointed to bewail his death filled 360 milk bowls every day. This was to denote the primitive Egyptian year used in the reign of Osiris. The same year was also represented in an ancient custom at Akanth, about 15 miles distant from Memphis, on the Libyan side of the Nile, for 360 priests to fetch water every day from the Nile and to pour it into a barrel full of holes. This naturally represented the 360 days of the year in a continual flow or succession, which they observed to be finished in, the moon, the course of the moon, which they observed to be finished in 30 days. This formed the lunisolar year of 360 days, which was the only stated year of all nations for many ages, before any regular intercalations were made. Intercalations were never necessary until after the cataclysm. It appears from the history of the antediluvian Chaldean kings of Berosus that the original Chaldean year, the most ancient of all others, consisted of no more than 360 days, for he reckoned them by Sari. The first king, I'm sorry, that's at the bottom. That's an end of a sentence. This year was represented by the compass of the walls of Babylon, said to be built by Semiramis, who employed 2 millions of men in the work, who built a stadium or furlong. This is concerning the walls of Babylon in the reign of Queen Semiramis. I think this was after Belus was killed in the Hule Marsh. Queen Semiramis had walls of Babylon rebuilt or strengthened, and there were exactly 360 furlongs around the city. One furlong for each day of the year. Manetho had seen the Chaldean history of Berosus, who from the most ancient Babylonian records reckoned in 10 dynasties 120 sari of 10 years each, or 1,200 Chaldean years. Right here, 1,200 Chaldean years. This is important to see. Of 360 days each, from the beginning of the Chaldean kingdom in the antediluvian ages to the universal deluge. Why is this so important? Because right here we have an ancient reference that Berosus' 1,200 Chaldean years were of 360 days each, which means that when Berosus was quoting that the period from the appearance of Enki and the Anunnaki, 432,000 shars before the Great Flood was not 432,000 years. It's dumb. 10 kings can't live 432,000 years. This is the pinwheel Nickelodeon Billy Carson version of history. It's bullshit. It's 432,000 shars, or turnings of the stars, which means it's only 12 centuries, and that makes sense. The Anunnaki appeared by ship in the year 3439 BC at the Gihon flood, when 1/3 of the human race was destroyed in a cataclysm. And then 12 centuries later, the Great Flood happened. The distance in time between them are 12 centuries, or 12 centuries, which is exactly 10 120-year periods. It all makes sense when you look at the calendars that the people used at the time. This observation has not hitherto been made, and is most remarkable and necessary for the understanding of Egyptian chronology, and highly deserves the attention of the learned reader. I'm not talking about all those people we block, all these triggered idiots that come in here thinking they know more than we do, and we've been doing the work. No, it's talking about highly deserves the attention of the learned reader. I'm not talking about Jay Dreamers. I'm not talking about Billy Carson, Jimmy Corsetti, Graham Hancock, all these pretended authorities that really are barf parrots that really don't know what they're talking about. The learned reader is the individual who does the work, who sees the interrelatedness of the data and understands and comprehends that every bit of this, the history of the world, especially chronologically, is self-referencing. Remember, if something is true, it will always be seen from multiple different mathematical vantage points. And this is what we do. This is why Chronicon is so comprehensive. Forward and backward in time, using 41 different ancient and modern calendars, we can pinpoint the exact year for almost every historical occurrence. So, whether Manetho had any other foundation than what I have supposed for fixing the beginning of Vulcan's reign, that's Phoenix, Vulcan's reign, just 1,200 years of 360 days each before the flood, and so making it commence 1,072 years after the creation, very close to 1080, cannot be shown. But yet, as Vulcan was a Phoenician deity brought with several others into Egypt by the first Hermes, and appeared by the old Phoenician annals made use of by Sanchuniathon, to have lived many centuries, before the flood. Here's another reference showing This is another reference showing that 1200 years is not 432,000 years. It is 1200 years, which is 432,000 days precisely. 432,000 divided by 360 days, as it says right here, is exactly 1200 years, 12 centuries. This is all known. In ancient times, it was all known what this meant. Epic, let's see, the same epic with the Phoenician, but at their exodus or going out of Egypt, they were commanded by God to begin the year at the original epic of it, which was the vernal equinox. This is also something I've showed on my channel. January 1st is not the old world calendar. This is why there's an overlap between the Anno Mundi system that I use in all my calculations and the Anno Domini today, which starts at January 1st. It's an overlap of 2.5 months. Yeah, because the vernal equinox, the 21st of March, is New Year's on the ancient world system. When the Israelites went into Egypt, they knew no other than the Chaldean lunisolar years of 360 days, which Abraham brought into Canaan, and which probably was the same with the Phoenician and Egyptian year. This is in long livers. The Persians followed the Egyptians in the division of the year. After that, Cambyses, lord of Egypt, having destroyed the tomb of Samandius, found in it a circle of gold of 360 cubits in circumference. Every one of these cubits marked the days of the year by the engraving made upon them of the sitting and of the rising and setting of the planets, signs, and fixed stars of the first and second magnitude. It is these which are so efficacious in the conjunction of luminaries, according to all astronomers. So, we had a Persian conqueror of Egypt raid a pharaoh's tomb, and inside the pharaoh's tomb was an artifact that showed a 360-day year. In the temple at Edfu, a structure of the Ptolemies, these were Greeks in Egypt, 360 local forms of Hathor are said to have been enumerated, and among these 7 were especially prominent. Just shows you that 365 wasn't venerated in Egypt. It was 360. According to many of the ancients, the antediluvian days were more equal than the present, as was their year also, which consisted of 360 days. Making use of the antediluvian year, which was 360 days. The reason this is all so important is because when you understand the mistake that was made in Berosus to Manetho of the 432,000 shars being 12 centuries and not 500,000 years, when you understand that, you'll also understand that all the yugas are divisible by 108,000 days. 216,000 days is 108,000 times 2. 432,000 days is 108,000 times 3. When you understand that the Mayan long count is also divisible by 108,000, when you understand the Bactans in the 1,872,000 days of the Mayan long count of 13 Bactans of 144,000 days each is all perfectly divisible by 108. You understand that every one of these ancient calendars are part of the same original pre-cataclysm system, and only after the cataclysm did different cultures take different pieces and different memories and build their own systems. This is what happened. And now we're putting it all back together, and every bit of it makes sense. But when we put it back together, it shaves off 500,000 years of Indian, Vedic, and Anunnaki history and abbreviates it all to a 12th century period right there before the Great Flood. The entire mythological, historical, and chronological record of the entire world fits within a framework of 7,000 years. Every bit of it. see here. Another good, this John Jackson, 1700s. But perceiving that these large numbers of years were uniformly carried on and made use of by the most judicious and learned ancient writers, without any intimation or suspicion made by them that they were fabulous, I judged that they were founded on real and true calculations, and only differed from those of other nations in the manner of reckoning, frames of reference, and not in the chronology itself. He's saying the numbers are accurate, the interpretation is wrong. Exactly what I'm telling you. And I found at last, with great satisfaction, that the most ancient computation of days for years amongst the Chaldeans, and of months for years amongst the Egyptians, warranted by the testimony of writers of the greatest credit and most conversant in the histories and antiquities of these nations, reconciled all their accounts together, made them consistent with the course of nature and the history of the first ages of the world. This man summed up 300 years ago what's taking me hundreds of videos to show. He summed it up. Days for years answers the Shar problem and takes all of Vedic, Sanskrit, Brahmanic, Hindu history and it makes it side by side with the Chinese Dragon King's history, with the Sumerian King List history, with the Babylonian, Chaldean, Sumerian histories. They're all at the same time. It's all pre-flood world, every bit of it. Every bit of it. And when you factor the fact that the Egyptians did not use the sun to reckon time, they were lunar. They were a lunar-based calendar system. And according to this, their years were only 30 days. They were months. I'm going to show you a couple more before I tell you why that's important. Hold on. We'll go to that one next. Well, I've already showed it in a couple other ones. So let me expand on this. Why is it important to know that a month is an Egyptian year? Because Graham Hancock, Jimmy Corsetti, and so many are trying to tell you the same thing the Golden Dawn Society, occultists and mystics were publishing in the 1800s, which was a mistake. It's a mistake that was corrected by a scholar named Eudoxus of Cnidos in the days of Plato, when he wrote that the Egyptians told Solon that Atlantis was 9,000 years before 9,000 years earlier in the past, before Solon. It's a mistake. The Egyptian priests at Sais would have never said 9,000 years and meant 9,000 Greek solar years. They would have meant 9,000 lunations, which was the year of the ancient Egyptians, which puts Atlantis exactly in the historical of record where we find the founding of Athens, because the entire Atlantis narrative of Plato is about the war of the Atlanteans against Athens. 13th century BC. There were no Greeks. There was no Athens in the Younger Dryas period. You're being psyoped. And it is so dumb when you just think about it. And every bit of it makes perfect sense when you understand the Egyptians reckoned a year as 30 days. That's exactly what Eudoxus of Cnidos and Diodorus Siculus both wrote. They both wrote the Egyptians factored a year as 30 days. So where did the mistake come from? How did Berosus make the mistake 2,000 years ago? I'm going to tell you why. Because the Shar, which is a turning of the stars, which means a day, it had already fallen into disuse by 15 centuries before Berosus, a Greek, even put all that together. Chaldean history. Here's how the problem started, because the exact same symbol that was used for the number one, here's the cuneiform number one. Do you see that in cuneiform number one? He didn't understand that this symbol right here changes its meaning. It changes its meaning according to placement value, where you put it. It changes the meaning. But look at this. The exact same symbol that meant one. There's a shar right there. That's a shar. One. It means one. It's a single turning of the stars. And the number 432,000 times this symbol right here would have been 12 centuries. But the same symbol also is the base denominator of the Sumerian sexagesimal system. It means the number 60. It also means the number 3,600. Berosus said a shar was 3,600 years, but he made a mistake. And he made a mistake because the symbols were identical. He also wrote about the Nur, calling it the Neuros, and he made mistakes about it. But this is the same symbol for a Nur. It's a calendrical symbol, and it's 216,000 right here. What is 216,000 of these? Okay, what is it? What is it though? It's this. It's this right here. But it says number one. But if you have 216,000 of these right here, like this alludes, what do you have? 216,000 of these is precisely 600 years. It's a Nur, an Anunnaki Nur of 600 years. 216,000 is also a Yuga, but so is 432,000. So is 648,000. So is 864,000. All these units right here, if you just stack them on top of each other, you have the yugas of the Hindu system. It's right here. That's how he made the mistake. It was a very simple mistake to make. But that simple mistake has gotten a lot of modern writers with egg on their face. And it's so crazy. It's so crazy to me listening to Graham Hancock, Jimmy Corsetti, Billy Carson double down. Do you have any idea? I'm not going anywhere. Why would you double down when the accurate information absolutely collapses all this BS you're promoting? Why would you double down? This shit's going to come back and bite you in the ass. More and more people are waking up to the Archaix chronology. Yeah. And the fact that Graham Hancock has been silent on the public callouts, Jimmy Corsetti, Matt LaCroix, Billy Carson, they have all refused to debate me on these issues. Why? Because they know the data is unassailable. And they're probably watching this video as well. They probably watch all my videos. But it's embarrassing. Why would you double down? This is going to hurt you in the long run. Yeah, man. It's crazy. Yeah, you do not double down in the face of overwhelming data that you're wrong. You capitulate because the public can forgive you for being wrong. They're never going to forgive you for being obstinate. It's just the way it is. Going to the next one. All right. So, we already got this the 1200 years. We don't have this one though. The Chronicle Paschal says this kingdom of Babylonia and Chaldea was founded by the giants, and so it was in the days of Jared, which agrees to the time above. So, Babylonian civilization says its founding date was by giants in the days of Jared. I have already shown in the biblical chronology, the days of Jared was exactly 456 Anno Mundi. 456 Anno Mundi, what calendar going this way lines up with the BC calendar, 3439 BC this way. They're the exact same date. 3439 BC of our calendar today is the year 456 Anno Mundi, meaning it's the 456th year of the pre-flood world. Why is that important? Because that's the days of Jared, according to the biblical narrative in Genesis. And in the days of Jared, Enki appeared with the Anuna, exactly 432,000 shars before the flood, or 12 centuries before the flood. Here in this case, it's saying that Babylonia was founded at that time. And as you know from my research, it was the 34th century BC where technology just exploded. Everything just exploded. We went from the Neolithic all of a sudden to massive urbanization, population explosion. After the cataclysm, we just grew as a species. We just grew, spread out. It's just crazy. And this says it was giants. From the perspective of very small people, I can see that. I can see that. All right, we've already seen this quote. We've already seen, let's see, Annals of the Temple of Belus. But it was impossible for Manetho to find any kings who reigned in Egypt before the flood, and therefore he feigned a catalog of kings who really lived several centuries after the flood to be antediluvian deities or god kings, and made their times equal to the 10 antediluvian kings of Berosus, and to be just 12 centuries old, 1200 old Egyptian years of 360 days each, from Vulcan, Enki, from Vulcan to the flood. What is being said here is that Manetho invented pre-flood Egyptian kings where they do not exist. They didn't exist. It wasn't Professor Sadi. What is the name of the professor that I've quoted that has that fantastic book on Sumerian Egyptian chronology being the same? Man, I've cited him so many times. I can't remember the guy's name now. Man, Professor from the 1930s wrote fantastic books. Man, I'm not going to be able to find it. Out of all these books, I am not going to be able to find. I'm not going to be able to find it right now. I can't remember his name. Man. Oh, Professor L.A. Waddell. Professor L.A. Waddell, that's exactly what he shows. He shows that the earliest dynasties of Egypt were not pre-flood. They were after the cataclysm. And he goes and shows all these monuments that other scholars do not want you to see because they have adopted the Egyptian long chronology and it's inaccurate. And Professor L.A. Waddell in the 1930s and 40s released 2 books that completely proved that ancient Egypt was post-cataclysm. It's amazing. It's amazing material. And I'm talking about I'm not talking about the pyramid building up north. That was underneath the Mediterranean. I'm talking about Waset, Kemet, Thebes, Karnak, Valley of the Kings, all that in the upper Egypt to the south. Every bit of that was built after the cataclysm. The northern parts in lower Egypt, where all the pyramids are, because there's no pyramids in southern Egypt. All the pyramids, that was underneath the Mediterranean. That's why they're all so heavily damaged. Okay, this observation has not hitherto been made and is both remarkable and necessary for the understanding of Egyptian chronology and highly deserves the attention of the learned reader. Oh, we did that in the previous section about the 1200 years. Cool, we're done with that folder. Moving on up. Oh, here's the Atlantis stuff. Here's what you need for the Atlantis stuff. I read this earlier. The guy talking about Egyptian months, Egyptian years for 30 days. So let's go to the next one. Having treated fully the most ancient years and shown that the original year of all nations was lunisolar and consisted of 360 days, and how the solar and lunar periods were by degrees improved and perfected and by intercalations made to correspond with each other, before I proceed to the Egyptian antiquities and chronology, it is necessary to show that in the most ancient times preceding the Noahic flood and after it, the Egyptians reckoned the reigns of their fabulous gods and demigods by years of single lunar periods only, or of 30 days. I'm not saying of 30 days. He wrote that. Of 30 days. That's not me. I'm not interjecting that. That's what's written in the text. Egyptian years were 30 days. This totally changes and corrects the Atlantis chronology. Some of those who, with Job, say that man comes forth like a flower and dies as soon as born, maintain that this long course of years of the ancients was regulated by the lunary movement of 29 or 30 days. From reading Lactantius and Plutarch on the life of Numa, the second king of Rome, might be insinuated that the year of the ancients was no longer duration than one of our months, or at most one of our 4 seasons. The Chaldeans and the Arcadians followed this use, as well as some other people, of whom Macrobius speaks in the 12th chapter of his first book of Saturnalia. Okay, we just read that one. The number of the Egyptian antediluvian dynasties, as I shall prove hereafter, yet he observes very truly that the Egyptians reckoned a month for a year. The Egyptians reckoned a month for a year in the first ages of the world, and in the reigns of the first fabulous kings, whom they called gods and demigods. This computation enables us to understand perfectly the oldest Egyptian chronology and to reduce it to a very near and exact conformity with the sacred chronology of Scripture. Those poor Egyptians thought they were ancient. Okay. Of the long lives of men in the first ages of the world, but it shows that Varro, that's Marcus Varro, Roman historian, that Varro knew that the Egyptians had anciently reckoned the lives of men by lunar year of 30 days. But when they computed by this year, they represented the lives of the first men, deified men, to consist of many thousands and sometimes myriads of years. Thus Manetho reckons the reign of Vulcan, the oldest Egyptian god, to be 9,000 years, which Africanus observes were resolved by historians into months, and they were undoubtedly to be understood. So Julius Africanus actually wrote almost 16 centuries ago that these historians were wrong because the Egyptian years were months. Here they are. Africanus said that. Jason of Archaix didn't say it. The way of reckoning by lunar years of a month was used only in computing the times of the gods and demigods to the flood, and the times of the heroes and mere mortal kings who reigned after were computed by solar years, and they never used lunar years in reckoning the particular reigns of their heroes or kings who were esteemed mere men. I disagree with that, because I don't believe they started it was after the change of the zodiac, after the 7th century, when they changed that use. That file's over with. So we know that I've done some videos on the year 713 BC, and I showed you how Earth changed ecliptics. The zodiac changed. In the Bible, it said that the sun stood still. And then retrograde. It went backwards 10 degrees before it stood still again and then started moving forward. Well, the sun never moved. Earth did. At least that's what the story the sky is telling us. Remember, the sky is simulated. The entire sky sim is technology. So we know also that an Assyrian period ended in 712 BC. That's pretty interesting right there to see this written down, because 713 BC was when the year changed from 360 days to 365.25 days. It changed all the calendars. Fantastic as the theory sounds, in the ears of the more crusted sort of astronomers, it is very curious that both the ancient Mexicans and the old Roman writer Varro, between whom there can have no contact, say that at the time of the great catastrophe, an amazing sign appeared in the skies. The star of Venus changed its color, size, form, shape, and course, and never before or after was the like seen. I've explained in my presentations, Venus never moved. Earth jumped ecliptics. What had really changed was not the shape or course of Venus, but the orbit of the Earth reeling backwards into space as the axis at the poles tilted and lurched with extreme violence. This is written almost 100 years ago, guys. It would have driven survivors mad and might have been responsible for the horrific cults of human sacrifice and propitiation of harvest gods found in ancient races after the catastrophe, and reaching a degree of aberration and approached paranoia among the Aztecs and Mayas of Central America. He's basically saying the institution of human sacrifice began as a way to stop this event from ever happening again. And we've talked about that too on my channel, especially with the legend of Perseus and Medusa and the giant squid human sacrifice that was done in the worship of Poseidon. So here's really curious thing about remembering in the Great Tribulation, it's going to be as in the days of Noah. But as in the days of Noah, we're going to find out what's crazy in the book of Revelation. We find out that the year is going to be abbreviated from 365 days to 243 days. 1/3 of the year is going to be removed. This is in the tribulation of the book of Revelation. Well, look at this. One admits the heavy mathematical odds against such a collision. There was probably a terrific force exerted that tore it from its old orbit far nearer the sun and drove it outwards into space. If that happened, the year would be lengthened from, say, 250 days to the present 365 days. And this may account for the incredible years of the patriarch Methuselah, which make a modern compiler of mortality tables smile in his beard, or those of the kings of ancient Sumeria, which so puzzled the late Sir Wallace Budge of the British Museum. It only puzzled him because he didn't know that shars were days, not years. But still, he makes a good point. The year of the antediluvian time may have been 240 days. Only after the Great Flood, it would have been 360 days. Fantastic as the theory sounds in the ears of the more crusted sort of astronomers. Oh, we've already talked about it. We've already done that one. Okay, there was another remarkable circumstance connected with the priests of Egypt, which was calculated to lead them far away from historical truth. The Egyptians measured time by a solar year of 360 days, divided into 12 months of 30 days. It was early observed that this year did not correspond to the sun's orbit, and therefore 5 additional days were added. This was after 713 BC. Plutarch observes that the Egyptians called Typhon Set, and this statement is confirmed by the inscriptions. The color of Set was burning red, like cinnamon, like the glowing sun in the dust of the desert. The ass was the sacred animal of this god. The ass, the donkey, was the sacred animal in Egypt to Typhon Set. So in poisonous, let's see, peculiarly formed animal, his symbol is on monuments. In poisonous serpents also, the Egyptians saw this destructive deity, and they brought the crocodile and hippopotamus into association with him. The third of the 5 additional days of the year, which belonged to Set, was to the Egyptians an unlucky day. On a papyrus, he is called the Almighty Destroyer and Blighter. I want to take you on a little tangent real quick. The ancient Egyptians associated Set, the enemy of Horus, the sun. Set was the bringer of darkness. Now, in ancient times, remember, it's mentioning the hippopotamus and it's mentioning the crocodile. You remember in my presentations, I explained when they show a solar hero with a sword or a spear standing on an alligator, on a lizard, or on a dragon, like George and the Dragon. This is a symbol of the solar hero conquering a previous calendar. The crocodile represents a timekeeping system. I've shown this on my channel. It's relative to what you're hearing here, because what I've never ever said on my channel before is that when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on an ass, on a donkey, remember Jesus was representing the sun. He's the son of the sun. He all the symbols for Jesus in the New Testament are solar. So here we have the sun riding into Jerusalem, and riding means he's standing on top of a system by which he has now taken control of, the Phoenix system. This is what the ass represents. The ass is the Egyptian symbol for Typhon. Typhon is Set. Typhon is the phoenix. So Jesus assumed the properties of the phoenix. That's why he had healing in his wings, and he brought the message of resurrection, which was the phoenix message. Let's see. This is this is very interesting. So my Archaix veterans, you already know about the year 713 BC. It's in my published books. 713 BC is when the sun stopped in the sky, retrograded. This is when the year changed from 360 days to 365.25. This is when Earth jumped ecliptics and changed to the new zodiac, which later developed after hundreds of years into Aries through Pisces. The original zodiac of Orion and the Pleiades and Arcturus and the Great Bears and Canis Major, Canis Minor, that zodiac was gone. And in the ancient Greek legends that I've shown, Apollo made a deal with Mother Earth, Gaia. And in that deal, they did away with an older zodiac to bring in the new zodiac. That's because Earth jumped ecliptics. But what's crazy about that is, here it is. This is recognized in ancient Roman calendar, because the first year of the pre-Julian Roman calendar is the year 713 BC. And this is by scholarship. You can't make this up, guys. It's all self-referencing, every bit of it. It's when they added 5 days to the calendar. They had to. All writers agree that the 23rd of February was the Terminalia, or the last day of the year, after which all intercalary months and days were added. But February, having had 28 days from the reign of Numa, the last 5 days, which at first were intercalary, were reckoned as part of the fourth month. So let's see what's happening here. Part of the month. I don't understand what it's trying to say. I do know that in the pre-flood world, the vernal equinox was the New Year's. After the cataclysm, the New Year's would have retrograded some. But the Terminalia is just a Roman festival for the end of the Roman year, and that was in February. And this actually means that, see, January, February, March. That means that March, remember the vernal equinox, March 21st was the ancient New Year. That means the beginning of March to the Romans was the New Year. And February was the Terminalia. And the new 5 unlucky days of the Romans that they had to add to the calendar were just stuck on the end of the year, which was February. Okay, I've already got the Paschal Chronicle. Oh, look at this. Archbishop James Ussher, 363 or 364 years ago, published the Annals of the World. It's huge. I have it on my shelf. I've showed it a few times. Oh, the Annals of the World. Look at 713 BC. He nailed it. 713 BC. Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backwards. So the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it had gone down. Wow. He nailed it. He nailed the exact year that happened, 713 BC. This is a chronology, biblical chronologist 300 and something years ago. The Babylonians retained the primitive lunar months and lunar year, but in some branches of astronomy, they made remarkable progress. By the 7th century before our era, they were able to trace the course of the sun through the 12 constellations of the zodiac. Why is this important? Because this is an admission that the zodiac of Aries through Pisces wasn't even known until at least the 7th century BC. 100 years after the 713 BC. Yeah, that's the 8th century. 713 BC is the 8th century BC. So about 100 years after that is when they were able to mark out a new zodiac. Oh, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, so they're definitely not going to want to hear this stuff right here. The use of mathematics and astrological calculations began about the 8th century BC. Thereafter, knowledge of astronomy advanced rapidly, and records of that period reveal notations concerning the spring equinox. That's the ancient New Year. New moon, eclipses, positions of the planets, and the rising of the fixed stars. The first eclipses observed in Babylonia and mentioned in the Almagest are from 721 and 720 BC. 721 is probably not even a real eclipse, because in 721 BC, we have a major phoenix phenomenon, sun darkening, mentioned by Marcus Varro and many other ancient historians. But yeah, again, we're dealing with the 7th century. The knowledge of the solar zodiac thus turned to account for dualistic purposes was undoubtedly derived from the Greeks. By them, too, it was introduced into Hindustan. Aryabhata, about the beginning of the Christian era, reckoned by the same signs as Hipparchus. They were transmitted from India by Buddhist missionaries to China, but remained in abeyance until the Jesuit reform of Chinese astronomy in the 17th century. Wow. Why would the Jesuits be involved in telling the Chinese what their astrology was? Wow. I'm telling you guys, the zodiac is a complete imposition. It is a false construct. Projected upon the ecliptic, these were considered unequal, and the sea, this is Chinese, the sea, the signs, accordingly differed essentially from the Chaldean and Greek signs. Their use was chiefly astrological, and their highly figurative names for the signs of their zodiac were Great Splendor, Immense Void, Fire of the Phoenix. That's our Aquarius. Remember, the original Aquarian sign was the sign of the phoenix, bringer of the flood. Had reference to no particular stars. They became virtually merged in the European series. Thank you, Jesuits. The old Indian names of the months were derived from them. This is the Greek. Their existence was presupposed in the entire structure of Hindu ritual and science. They do not, however, obtain full recognition in Sanskrit literature until the Brahmana period, 7th or 8th century BC. Everything is self-referencing, guys. The Rig Veda contains only one allusion to them, where it is said that Soma is placed in the lap of the Nakshastras, and this is in part including, including later interpolations. But Nakshastras could be a reference to the actual original zodiac signs, because Aries through Pisces isn't recognized in Sanskrit literature. But It could be a reference to the constellations of the original zodiac of Orion, Canis Minor, Canis Major, the Seven Sisters, Pleiades, Arcturus, Ursa Major, all those. That's the original. That's the original zodiac. The ceiling of Hathor from Dendera. The most spectacular representation of the Egyptian sky is the ceiling from the Temple of Hathor at Dendera in Upper Egypt, the famous circular Dendera zodiac now in the Louvre. All available evidence indicates that the concept of the zodiac was not native to Egypt. However, instead, it is believed that the zodiac was imported to Egypt from Mesopotamia at some late unknown date. The earliest known representation of the zodiac in Egypt was found at the now destroyed temple at Esna, also in Upper Egypt, which cannot be dated earlier than 246 BC. That's terrible. That's not ancient at all. It's way after 713 BC and was perhaps nearly 70 years more recent than that. When and where the zodiac originated is not known, but it is believed to have gradually evolved in Babylonia from the 12 incidents in the life story of the hero Gilgamesh. His killing of the bull, his love passage with the virgin, his adventures with two scorpion men, the scales later took the place of one of these, and the deluge story corresponding with the water carrier. Calendar tablets of the 7th century BC bear this out. Do you hear what these scholars are saying? 7th century BC. You're told today, it's a psyop. You're told today that the Epic of Gilgamesh and like the 12 labors of Hercules, which came from the Epic of Gilgamesh, is proof that the zodiac is ancient. Scholarship is telling you the exact opposite, and they have no reason not to tell you the truth about the zodiac, especially if scholars knew where the direction Archaix research is going. Oh yeah, they would definitely try to rescind all that. But they're telling you that the Epic of Gilgamesh had nothing to do with the zodiac, and that the zodiac signs of the ancient Greeks were later developed from the Babylonian epos of Bilgamesh. The original pronunciation is with a B. It's Bilgamesh, not Gilgamesh. But still, this is crazy. This is so crazy that we have an admission right here. Not only that the Epic of Gilgamesh is the template for which the later zodiac was modeled after, turning Gilgamesh into a solar hero like Heracles, but also that the earliest concept possible for this is 7th century BC. These are all different books, guys. These aren't the same authors saying all this. From the earliest days, sky watchers recognized a set of 12 groups of constellations that kept company with the sun and planets. These constellations always traveled within an area extending a little above and below the ecliptic. In the 5th century BC, Babylonian sky watchers divided the ecliptic into 12 segments, each marked by one of those constellations. Most of them were named after real or fantastic animals, hence the term zodiac, which comes from the Greek word circle of animals. 5th century BC is 300 years after 713 BC. Do you understand the implications of this? Go listen to Graham Hancock on Ancient Apocalypse, read Fingerprints of the Gods, and tell me how many times he uses the zodiac to date things at 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 BC. How many other archaeoastronomers and ancient writers that are all these guys, Robert Bauval, Graham Hancock, Andrew Collins, they borrow from each other. They just assume as fact what another one says, and they incorporate that, and they just keep building on this whole entire false narrative of history, trying to date Civilization X in the Ice Age, Atlantis 9,600 BC, Göbekli Tepe. Come on, Graham Hancock. That's a scorpion. That's Scorpio. And the alignment here, because, oh yeah, that's the wind. You know what? Göbekli Tepe, because Scorpio sign right here. These people were master astronomers. This place, Göbekli Tepe, is dated to the Younger Dryas period. This would have been built by the survivors of Atlantis. Oh my God. You can't date anything using a model that did not exist at that time. Göbekli Tepe wasn't built and had nothing to do with the Scorpio constellation. It is, can't even believe. That's the problem with having a sociologist, a trained sociologist, write books about ancient history. That's the problem. All right. Okay, the consideration that in the most ancient Sanskrit work in existence, the purely Indian Rig Veda, containing no Grecian taint, the 12-fold divisions of the zodiac appear to be unknown. This opinion as to the rashis or constellations of the solar zodiac is so generally adopted that the age of any Sanskrit work in which mention of these rashis occurs is at once, no matter its claims to antiquity may be, set down as not earlier than the comparatively modern date of 300 BC. Quit telling me ancient India has all this old stuff. They do not. That has all been misconstrued. The Vedic texts are no different. They're no different than the Sumerian as far as antiquity goes. Egypt, Sumer, India, China all have the exact parallel histories. The Grecian introduction of the 12-fold zodiac into India is about 300 BC. The date of 570 AD for the fixation of the initial point of the Indian zodiacs and for the commencement of the history of Indian astronomy. That's so far later. Scholarship has it so far later than the Golden Dawn Society, so far later than all these pseudo historians that are putting out these millions of copies of this garbage, this drivel in the Graham Hancock community, and all his co-authors and all the people who write that whole genre of archaeoastronomy books. You can take them all and throw them away. They're garbage. They're trash. The signs of the zodiac are not any of them remarkable for being connected with objects of an Indian nature. The 28 Hindu lunar mansions and the asterisms are almost all named after objects peculiarly Hindu. You hear what it's saying? The solar zodiac was an imposition into India. It didn't belong. The lunar zodiacs did. They're full of all kinds of stuff in India. This raises a strong presumption against the solar zodiac being a Hindu invention. If the solar zodiac had been of Hindu or African growth, Egyptian, the elephant and camel would have definitely been found in it. Mr. Maurice has observed that the signs of the zodiac cannot be of Egyptian origin because they are not adapted to the order in which the seasons succeed each other in Egypt. Yeah, so I agree with that too. The earliest zodiac is therefore the lunar zodiac, a system of nocturnal signs. From the conception of the lunar zodiac originated the many anciently pictured forms of horned headdress supporting a moon. The latter often hieroglyphically represented in the shape of a crescent to avoid its being confused with the sun, figured as crowning various deities of the year. Wow. The lunar zodiac is the zodiac of the ancient Euphrateans. And I'm trying to tell you guys over in all my presentations, this entire solar zodiac is a Jewish imposition upon the Western world. It is a part of the cipher they gave us in Tetrabiblos. Tetrabiblos means 4 books, and the zodiac was created Aries through Pisces at the exact same time as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John of the New Testament, where all these zodiacal, all this astrotheological stuff derives from. It all works in tandem. It is massive. It is a massive psyop covering over more accurate calendrical and astrological information. The original zodiac consisted only of 6 constellations: Taurus, the crab or turtle, tortoise, Virgin or an ear of corn, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces. According to the official religion of Chaldea, the sun god was the offspring of the moon god. Such a belief could have arisen only where the moon god was the supreme object of worship. To the Semite, the moon god was the Lord and Father of the gods. Go figure, go figure. How many times have I showed you in presentations where the sun came after the moon? It's because we had a vapor canopy. It is said that Jerome of Prague, when traveling among the heathen Lithuanians early in the 15th century, found a tribe who worshipped the sun and idolized a large iron hammer. The priests informed him that once the sun had been invisible for many months because a powerful king had imprisoned him in a strong tower, but the signs of the zodiac had broken open the tower with this very hammer and released the sun. Therefore, they worshipped it. Interesting. It almost seems to allude that the signs of the zodiac didn't appear until after the cataclysm when the sun was freed. That's pretty interesting. I wonder if over Canaan, the sun retrograded 10 degrees. Did that mean that the sun went over the horizon and over Lithuania it darkened? And then they thought the sun disappeared? This is in the book of Job. The reason I'm quoting it is because Job is not a Jewish text. Job is the oldest book in the Bible. It was taken from the Sabaeans. Of course, it was rewritten by the Jews, but still. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? What's missing here? What's missing here? How come there are no legends and no traditions of Aries, of Cancer, Gemini, Capricorn, Scorpio? Where are all the myths and traditions and legends of Pisces, Aquarius? But we have so many references to the Pleiades, to Orion, Arcturus, right here, and his sons, which would be his dogs, Canis Major, Canis Minor. So, and this Mazzaroth here, I get so tired of people who actually think they're going to correct me on some of this material. And they throw things out. Jason, you don't know what you're talking about. Mazzaroth means the zodiac. And no, it doesn't. No, it effing doesn't. I'm going to show you. Mazzaroth in the book of Job is not the zodiac. The King James Version of the Bible was the first to put in its margins that Mazzaroth referred to the houses of the zodiac, but this is not a translation. It was a guess. In Smith's Bible Dictionary 1905, we find that the Peshitta-Syriac version of the book of Job renders Mazzaroth as the Great Bear, Ursa Major, which aligns with the spirit of the text, mentioning single constellations not a part of the zodiac. This means the book of Job was written before 713 BC, and it was still honoring the earlier zodiac. Let's see. Zodiac sign. This is the book of symbols, or book of ancient symbols I showed earlier. Zodiac, signs of the 12 signs on an imaginary zone in the heavens, suggested by the 12 full moons in the course of a year, 560 BC. It's still way after 713 BC. Still way after. So we're done with Zodiac. I know you guys, I know I probably lost a lot of listeners. People get tired of hearing about the Zodiac. I know they do. So, this section here is going to trigger some people. This is one in the table of contents to one of these books I'm citing, that the Hebrew chronology was never adopted by any Christian church till the Reformation, and then only partially. What? What's he talking about? What is he talking about? Well, let's look. This is clearly a duty, and to neglect this duty seems to me like a practical disregard of divine truth and a depreciation of those means of purifying the scriptures from rabbinical corruptions, which an ever-watchful providence has placed in our hands. This is a chronologist over 200 years ago telling us that the Bible is full of rabbinical corruptions. I have indeed deemed it right to bring before the reader a series of facts connected with scripture chronology, and which will show first that the common notion that Adam was created 4,004 years before Christ is founded on a rabbinical corruption of the sacred oracles. And secondly, that the true Bible computation carries the creation of man nearly 2,000 years further back. Welcome to the Archaix chronology. Year one is 5,239 BC. 5239 BC begins a calendar of 7,344 years. The man is absolutely correct. Year one of the pre-flood world of the 1656 years is 3895 BC, but that wasn't the beginning. Remember, Adam and Eve suffered a reset. A whole civilization was wiped out. It was wiped out terribly. That civilization began in 5239 BC. The beginning of the Anuna Nur chronology. The labors of Vossius, Pezron, Hayes, Jackson, Hales, Russell, and others, these are all chronologists, have thrown a flood of light upon this once difficult question, and the rabbinical Hebrew has been shown to be encumbered by so many contradictions and difficulties, arising especially from its utter inconsistency with the best established facts in ancient history, that now, as Bishop Russell observes, it is everywhere rejected by sensible chronologists. There is positive evidence of corruptions having been introduced into the Hebrew scriptures by the Jews. It has been frequently stated by various authors that the Jews manifested all this, whatever. Eusebius presents the same charge. For speaking of Justin Martyr, he observes that Justin records certain prophetical declarations in his discussion with Trypho, showing that the Jews had expunged them from the scriptures. Trypho was Jewish. Justin Martyr, addressing Trypho the Jew, observes, I entreat you to remember that your rabbis have taken away entirely many texts of scripture from that version which was made by the elders who were at the court of Ptolemy. Alexandria Library. And then the celebrated Abu Faragius, the primate of the East, who flourished about AD 1240, the 1240 AD, asserts that the Jews, believing it to have been foretold in the law and the prophets that Christ was to be sent in the last times, in order to produce a reason or apology for rejecting him, altered the chronology of the world. Altered the chronology of the world. Wow. Welcome to Archaix. Advanced Research of Chronological History of Artificial Intelligence X. This is where we put the chronology back together that was previously corrupted. In another church in the same locality is the symbol of a six-pointed star enclosing the all-seeing eye. This double equilateral triangle is one of the most sacred of all emblems of Pythagoras and was revered for ages as the seal of King Solomon. It is also an important Masonic emblem. What is this symbol doing in early Christian churches? 300 years ago, John Jackson wrote, "The following work, which I humbly present to your grace, contains the origin and chronology of the most ancient kingdoms, which, if we except the Jewish nation, have hitherto lain in obscurity and confusion. Nor have the annals of the Jewish nation, which were originally written by the most faithful historians, been preserved free from corruption, especially in their chronology, which hath been altered to such a degree as renders the Hebrew accounts of the most ancient times utterly inconsistent both with the Mosaic history itself and also with the oldest records and history of other nations. This corruption I have shown was owing to the Jews themselves in later times, by which many of the most learned Christian writers, both at home and abroad, have grossly imposed upon." The entire Christian world has borrowed the Jewish dating for everything. Let me give me some water. Check my chat so I can see where we're at. And we got 3 files. We've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've gone through 13 files and we have 4 files left. And 3 of those files are small. Let's see where I'm at. 2 hours and 30 minutes. Oh my God. Two hours and 30 minutes. Y'all want to keep going? Or you want me to do a part 2? Because I got a lot left. I need to know in the chat. Keep going or do a part 2? Because a part 2 is going to be 2.5 hours too. Yeah, man. I knew you were going to say keep going. You guys suck. Y'all suck. I swear. Man. All right. Let's see here. Let's see here. 4 more files. Let's get to it. All right, y'all can stop. Y'all can stop. Y'all the keep goings. I don't need a break. I don't need a break, guys. I'm good. Let's see here. Oh, I got 3 files. I'm sorry. Jewish corruption of calendar, I've already done. I've got Phoenix appearances. I got miscellaneous, which is the big file. And then the last days is the last file. So let's go straight into Phoenix appearances. Oh, yeah. Let me share again. All right, let's do it. Okay. Tacitus too notes that it was generally thought that the phoenix, he said, appeared in AD 34 was a false one. It had not come from Arabia and had not done any of the things the ancient tradition said it should have done. So these references I'm sharing with you now are taken from old Roman and Greek writers that actually claim that different events in the history of those times had something to do with the return of the phoenix. That's how the belief was still strong. We have already referred to the report of Tacitus that the phoenix was supposed to have appeared under Sethos I, Amasis, and Ptolemy III, Euergetes. This passage begins by saying that the phoenix appeared in Egypt during the consulate of B. Fabius and L. Vitellius, for example, in AD 34, and that this had led to heated discussions among Greek and Egyptian scholars. Many held the opinion that this phoenix was not a true one, and it's not. the Christian church was trying to say that the phoenix had come back, so later historians would be able to connect the phoenix with Jesus. That the phoenix came flying from Arabia need mean no more than, for the Egyptians, the sun rose from the Sinai desert. It is ironical. I don't know why he said ironical, but it is ironical that the early Christians continued to believe in a literal phoenix, which they made a type of resurrected Christ long after the phoenix had been killed. The Emperor Augustus unwittingly killed it in 30 BC when he stabilized the Egyptian calendar. Do you know what's being said here? 31 BC was a phoenix cycle. A red sky dragon appeared over Egypt during the Battle of Actium, civil war, a massive earthquake from Greece all the way to Jerusalem. The Olmec civilization, 31 BC of our calendar, is the last date on an Olmec date. They vanished from history. It's from the Cataclysm. 31 BC was a phoenix date. Phoenix is keeper of the calendar. Right here it says Emperor Augustus unwittingly killed it in 30 BC. That's when 30 BC he started a new calendar. He stabilized the Egyptian calendar, removing the phoenix cycles, just like the Roman Catholic Church did 500 years later when they removed the Boudic cycle of 552 years. Replaced it with the Jewish cycle of Paschal cycle of 532 years. When God brought the children of Israel out of Egypt by the hand of Moses, the phoenix showed itself on the temple of On, the city of the sun. It's trying to show that Phoenix participated in the 10 plagues or whatever. As the 2nd century before Christ, we find in the Alexandrian Jew Ezekiel the dramatist the statement that the phoenix showed itself to the Israelites after their departure from Egypt. Well, in the chronology, that's true, because the departure from Egypt, the Exodus, was 1447 BC. The next phoenix episode on the 138-year timeline literally happened, and we have many historical records for it in 1411 BC. So this is accurate. 1411 BC. In the Coptic text, too, the accent falls on the fact that the phoenix showed itself during the departure from Egypt. In the 12th century, John of Salisbury was able to report that at the founding of Constantinople, the phoenix appeared as a good omen. Although this is not mentioned by older authors, it is not difficult to see how it could have originated. Many of the coins of Constantine and his sons show a phoenix, and the passage in the Codex Justinianus says that his empire was founded under favorable omens. Tacitus mentions still a third appearance of the phoenix, one which must also derive from Egyptian traditions. He says that the bird showed itself in the time of King Amasis, 569 to 526 BC. There is no evidence whatsoever that in this case the phoenix served as a symbol of the Sothic period. Its appearance was placed not only at the beginning of a new era, but also sometimes at the end of the preceding period. The symbolic significance of these two conceptions differs only slightly. We shall discuss it further in the following section. The death of Amasis meant the end of the Egyptian independence, which became a fact 6 months later when the country fell to the Persians. It is therefore understandable that it was later thought that an event of such proportions must have been marked by an appearance of the phoenix. The decree of Canopus was clearly intended to inaugurate a new era, but the success of this calendar reform does not seem to have been great. It is in this light that we must read the so far unexplained report of Tacitus that the phoenix appeared in the time of Ptolemy III. Evidently, an attempt was made to add authority to the new calendar by invoking an appearance of the phoenix. The herald of the new era, it is not impossible that in this case, the example of the appearance of the phoenix at the beginning of the Seleucid era served as inspiration. What's happening here is that The knowledge of the phoenix was still real strong 2,000 years ago, but historians are trying to link it to major events that were happening at that time. It's like Hal Lindsey's The Late Great Planet Earth, trying to attribute modern political movements and events with biblical prophecy. It's the same thing. In the 2nd and 6th years of his reign, about AD 138, 139, and 142 and 143, Antoninus Pius had coins struck in Egypt showing the phoenix and carrying the legend. I don't know what that means. Carrying the legend. That doesn't mean phoenix. It's something. I think that's alpha. I don't know. According to Censorinus, a new Sothic period began in, that's Eon. That's Eon, the legend of Eon, showing the phoenix connected to a new age. New Sothic period began in AD 139. Reference only being made to the phoenix, Eon coins dating from the 2nd and 6th years of the rule of Antoninus Pius. In this connection, we need point only to the coins struck for Hadrian in AD 121-122, the reverse bearing the legend Saculum Aureum. The idea of the cosmic rotation of the great year is suggested by the representation of the zodiac, within which is placed the figure of Eon holding in his hand a globe surmounted by the phoenix. Yeah, a lot of people think that the whole globe deal is new. It's not. There's ancient Greek depictions that they thought the model, for a while, they thought the world was a globe as well. As actually, even the Bible says, "And God hangeth the earth upon nothing." This is an old concept. I don't promote it. I believe the sky is simulated, but it doesn't matter. They did. They believed it. The appearance of a new ruler on the scene and the beginning of a new era were seen as a return of the golden age, the fortunate state of things that had prevailed at the beginning of the great year. This is clearly shown by the symbolism of the phoenix on a number of coins of Roman emperors. The appearance of the phoenix at the beginning of the Seleucid era coincided with the appearance of a new ruler and with the beginning of a new era. As far as we know, this was the first time that a relationship was drawn between the phoenix and these events. Within this closely woven complex of ideas, the phoenix, which in Hesiod and in the time of Seleucus I still indicated the period of one month of the world year, became, as a matter of course, a symbol of the great year. This is why Manilius, whose report shows a distinct relation to Hesiod's riddle, could write that the life of the phoenix coincides with a complete cosmic rotation. Yeah, Hesiod said it was 12 phoenixes. The great year was 12 phoenixes. Manilius report that the beginning of the Seleucid era was marked by an appearance of the phoenix. Okay, we're done with that folder. Oh, I did find something else. Hold on, there was something else here. Oh, this was just a recent find in a chronological book, because it goes from 936 to 937. The sky was darkened and became like blood and seemed bloody for several days. A great plague followed soon after. 936 is a phoenix year. This one is the sun went dark for 17 days over Constantinople in the Chronicon of Magdeburg. The sun was darkened 17 days in England. The year 798 AD is a phoenix year on the 138-year deal. So we have the sun darkening for 17 days on a phoenix year. Here they are right here. Here's the phoenix deal. I didn't have these. When I drew this chart on the phoenix phenomenon, I did not have these two dates. 798 and 936. Yeah, here's the two dates right here. This is out of a general chronological history. All right. Oh no, look at all those. I still got to go through all those. All right, we got 50 items right here. Let's do it. Let's do it. You guys have seen this before. In the 1st century AD, the phoenix is mentioned 21 times by 10 authors. Ovid, Cornelius, Valerianus, Pliny, Lucan, Martial, Pompilius Mela, Seneca, Statius, Chaeremon, and Pliny the Younger. All 10. Here are 10 authors in the 1st century AD for which we still have their writings, all mention the phoenix. Not one 1st century author ever mentioned the events of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the gospel, the crucifixion, any of that. 3,000 years assigned to the great year by Cicero, according to Servius. You guys know 5239 BC started the Anunnaki neurochronology of 600-year periods. 5 of those periods, 5 yugas of 216,000 days, is the year 2239 BC, the Great Flood. It is exactly 3,000 years in the Archaix chronology. The things people forget are often quite as interesting as those they remember, because in this category too, we find agreement. All 3 traditions, the Bible, the Gilgamesh epic, and the Edda, describe deluge survivors who were like gods or close to gods. They were, in other words, members of a superior civilization. However, this civilization ceased to exist after the deluge. This is the story of the Anunnaki. It's cargo cult phenomenon. That's why they were all men. They were almost, not all of them. There was a couple females, but they were almost all men. They were probably military, and they were out and about when the cataclysm happened. The Greek philosopher Plato described a flood catastrophe that may have taken place 8,000 years before his own time, which caused the disappearance of a whole continent. This has prompted several analysts to assume that Plato must have misplaced a zero. The sinking of Atlantis, they say, should have taken place between 1400 and 1200 BC. Nailed it. One thing had nothing to do with the other. Originally, gods did not come down from heaven, but from the mountains, just as the deluge traditions of India tell us. That is what is known as the descent of Manu from the mountain of the north. I've got videos about this too, guys. The descent of the Watchers, the descent of the Anunnaki, the descent of the gods is always from the mountain, just like Mother Shipton says. After the 2 sky dragons destroy the world, men of like unknown will descend out of the mountains and reteach the survivors of the world all kinds of things. Noah did not find his homeland again. It had disappeared into the Atlantic. Instead, he reached the coast of the American continent. We know this because his footprints in the Americas are beyond a doubt. This is also my position. Pre-flood civilization was in North America. We know that these gods were men. They were members of a superior and advanced civilization set back by a cosmic catastrophe without precedent in human memory, forced to face a Stone Age struggle for life. They did have their skills and powers, were able to demonstrate their superiority, but there were too few of them to be able to create a new culture, a new civilization for mankind. Within the void they were forced to face. But if one asked the ancient Peruvians whether their legends and myths contain memories of a technocultural upswing, they tell this story. Viracocha created the world, but it was dark and without sun, so he set a big fire and thus created a breed of giants. First, Viracocha sculpted them in stone. Then the legend goes on how the breed of giants created civilization. Iron, which can be traced to Egypt in 1300 BC, was unknown in the Americas until the time of Columbus. Do you know why this is important? iron, which can be traced to Egypt, because this is one of the things that I had messaged Jimmy Corsetti about. I says, hey man, the mistake that we can put aside the mistake of Plato's 9,000 deals, which has been corrected by chronologists, and we can just go by what's in the narrative of the Atlantis story by Plato. And one of them is according to the narrative, iron was introduced into the Mediterranean during the war between Atlantis and Athens. Well, archaeologists say that iron first appeared in the Mediterranean in the 13th century BC. There you go. Bam. Nailed it again. There are so many of these pieces of evidence in the story that show 13th century, such as the biggest one is that the Plato narrative is about the Atlanteans invading and attacking Athens. That kind of means that Athens needs to be there, right? Yeah. Athens was founded 1365 BC. It just gets ridiculous. The more you dissect this, it gets so dumb. The gods came homeless into our world. They permitted our ancestors to participate in their culture and civilization. Then, once they had left their gifts with us, they left this world, as do all men. They died. And we remain their heirs and their descendants. They were humans. This is an ancient Chinese tradition. The pillars of heaven were broken. The earth shook to its foundations. The sky sank lower towards the north. The sun, moon, and stars changed their motions. The earth fell to pieces, and the waters in its bosom uprushed with violence and overflowed. The system of the universe was totally disordered. Man had rebelled against the high gods. The sun went into eclipse. The planets altered their courses, and the grand harmony of nature was disturbed. Another Chinese myth says that at the Great Catastrophe, the whole world tilted violently and sank into the sea off the China coast. Wow. It's thundering outside. Y'all probably can't hear it with my mic. In the skies of terrible night shone a giant comet, or aerolite, or wandering star, or planet, we do not know which, but which brought such destruction on the earth that those who survived the disasters regained sanity only slowly, and in some cases never, as in that of the lunatic civilization of the old Aztecs, to which a definitely paranoid twist was given, making murder of bestial sort a rite of barbaric religion. Again, this writer is alluding to the fact that human sacrifice derived from a desire to stop this from happening to the world again. So let's see here. The red heifer. We're hearing a lot about the red heifer, the red heifer sacrifices and all that. Well, I'm gonna peel back the onion a little bit and let you know what's really going on with the red heifer. Okay, the Jews want to build the temple. They want to do all this temple about the red heifer. Okay, first of all, I need you to understand that the phoenix knowledge has been preserved by the Jews for millennia. They know it. It's in all the alchemical treatises. They put Hebrew next to the phoenix everywhere. Now I've showed this in my Occultus Mysterium videos. It's the Hebrew traditions that mainly record these things about the phoenix. And in the biblical material, when phoenix was predicted, and in the book of Jasher, it's always the ancestors of the Jews. So the reason I'm saying this is because there's a lot in the news about they're going to build a new temple. And when they build a new temple, they're going to start sacrificing the red heifer. Okay, I need you to understand where this comes from, the red heifer, because what they're really doing isn't what you think. So the red heifer, whose ashes were to be reserved as a water of separation for purification from sin. Both of these animals, the ass and the red heifer, were in Egypt sacred to Typhon, the phoenix. The ass being his symbol. The red oxen being at one time sacrificed to Phoenix. Although at a later date, objects of a red color were disliked, owing to their association with the dreaded Typhon. I think I got another. Should be another one here. I have another reference. I haven't got to it yet, but we're going to get to another reference of the red heifer. The sacrifice of the red heifer, a red heifer, is literally a sacrifice to Typhon, the phoenix. Before the creation, the world was a wide waste of water, and there was no light upon the earth, the sun being only an occasional visitor to this world. Anxious to keep the sun from wandering away very far, the god Wiskajak constructed an enormous trap to catch the sun. And the next time the sun came near the earth, he was caught in the trap. In vain he struggled to get free, but the cords by which he was held were too strong for him. The near proximity of the sun to the earth caused such heat that everything was in danger of being burned. Before the creation of the world, the sun was only an occasional visitor to our world. The earth was not on the solar ecliptic. Remember, our presence on the solar ecliptic completely violates the mathematical perfection of the Titius-Bode distribution of worlds from the surface of the sun. This is the model that science has given us, and Earth is an intruder planet according to this model. We were on a different ecliptic. Masonry is said to be derived from the Greek word which signifies, I am in the midst of heaven, alluding to the sun. Others derive it from the ancient Egyptian Phre, P-H-R-E, the sun, and Mas, a child. Therefore, Freemas, like Freemasonry, Freemas, for example, would mean children of the sun or sons of light. From this we get our Freemason. So, in like manner must this latter be regarded by them. 'Tis from this persuasion likewise of the red complexion of Typho that the Egyptians make use of no other bulls in their sacrifice, but what are of this color, red. Nay, so extremely curious are they in this respect, that if there be so much as one black or white hair in the beast, 'tis sufficient to render it improper for this service. For 'tis their opinion that sacrifices ought not to be made of such things as are in themselves agreeable and well-pleasing to the gods, but on the contrary, rather of such creatures wherein the souls of the wicked and unjust men have been confined during the course of their transmigration. The red heifer sacrifice is literally scapegoating the sins and trespasses of the sacrificers, the Jews, admitting that they have trespassed, admitting that they're in violation, that they are the offenders, and they basically put all their sin into the red heifer, and they sacrifice the red heifer because they want to survive on the surface. Remember, I've told you guys many times that the elite hide in the underworld over and over every time the Phoenix comes. Nothing's changed from that. My very first Archaix video was about the elite hiding underground. But in 1902, a third faction of the elite emerged. They were rising in the 1700s and initiated the French Revolution. They initiated the collapse of all the monarchies into democracies and republics because they could be more easily controlled through world trade, through the city, London, and through trade organizations. But they didn't actually make their power move until 1901 and 1902, the 1890s. And it was extremely evident with the unfolding of the Bolshevik Revolution, with the assassination of President McKinley in 1901, and then the first Jewish president to sit in the Oval Office in 1902. I said they made their move. But the elite bed down in underground facilities, but this group stays on the surface. They survive on the surface with everybody else. They don't go into the underworld and hide. They stay on the surface. So they asked the phoenix for protection by sacrificing the red heifer. Let's see. Oh, okay, I already read that one. The Chinese deal. Here's Harold T. Wilkins in the 1940s. In the skies of terrible night shone a giant comet or aerolite or wandering star. I already read that one too. Damn, I got doubles in here, guys. I'm sorry. Philolaus, who knew two destructions of the world, one by fire pouring from the sky and the other by water from the moon. That's right. We got some Hans Bellamy in here talking about our world. The moon was covered in water and ice, and all that ice rained down on our world and caused our ocean levels to rise. He claims that much of the water in our world is from the capture flood. Okay, so I already discussed the symbols and why everything is wrong. How Berosus made that mistake. Oh, look at this. Here are the yugas. Here are the yugas. What was I telling you about the number 108 and the number 216? Here are the yugas right here. There's the Maha Yuga right there. 1,080 years. 108,000 years. Base denominator 108. Great Pyramid finished in 1080 Annus Mundi after 1080 months of construction, which is exactly 90 years. The geometry of the Great Pyramid, self-referencing itself when it was built in the year 1080. It's formed of 10 108-degree angles. During the lapse of ages, countless legends and allegories have been evolved to embody the facts and the processes connected with this arcane mystery, but the metaphysics of these legends have never been revealed to the uninitiated. Especially has this been the case in regard to the dark satellite. However, the time has now come when certain facts in regard to this orb of evil are for the first time given out to the world pro bono publico. In the first place, certain misconceptions in regard to the dark orb need to be corrected. Many earnest students have thought it to be the lost orb of the Grecian mysteries, hence similar to the Egyptian conception of the spiritual fall. He's saying it's not the same. In that book by Charles Burgoyne, he explains that the 7 ancient ones that are coming back in the book of Revelations are trapped in that orb. It's a prison, and it's going to appear in the sky and open. Myths are not immensely exaggerated tales of local happenings, but matter-of-fact reports of universal events. The Tupi describe in their myths how the moon, with them the personification of all evil, falls periodically on the earth and destroys everything. Even nowadays, all baneful influences such as thunderstorms and floods are believed to be caused by that evil celestial body, the moon. It makes a terrible noise. That is why the dragon is usually called the thunderbird in many myths of the North American Indians. It's talking about the phoenix. Sometimes 2 dragons are mentioned. So in Mordecai's dream, quoted in the additions to the book of Esther, which are inserted before Esther 1 in the Greek translation, there was noise and turmoil, thunder and earthquake and terror on earth. And lo, 2 great dragons appeared, either one ready to give battle, and they made a great noise. It was a day of darkness and of gloom, of trouble, oppression, distress, and terror on earth. This is the Jewish legends of Leviathan and Behemoth. This is a reference to Phoenix and the Nemesis X object. In Greek mythology, we meet with Typhon, the youngest son of Gaia and Tartarus, of the ancient terrestrial and, I don't know how to pronounce that, Chthonian powers. Typhon is described as a grisly serpent-footed monster with 100 heads, which roared, breathing flames through the heavens. He is also the personification of volcanic and seismic forces. We know the Phoenix brings volcanic activity and earthquakes. Another myth of the Aztecs definitely says that the moon itself was undone by the Great Fire. In the beginning, it was dark in the world, as the sun had not yet been created. The goddess Metzlu knew that this state of things could only be remedied by a great sacrifice. So she built a huge pyre upon which she burnt Nahuatl, the leper. Then she threw herself into the flames. Thereupon the sun appeared in the heavens. It's just an interesting myth showing that the moon was first, the darkness was first, the sun came later. Arawaks of British Guiana say that the wickedness of mankind so enraged him who lives on high, Aramon Kondi, that he twice ordered a general destruction. First, he scourged the world with fire, and then he flooded it with water. A few men, however, contrived to escape from such catastrophe. They found refuge from the fall of fire in underground caverns, while at the time of the Great Flood, the ancestral chief Marcowana and his followers were able to escape in a canoe. The biblical tower myth becomes clear, however, if we regard the tower as what it really was, as a model of the mountain which safeguarded the ancestors, a model which to a certain extent, practically but chiefly magically, was in its turn to save the sons from the deluge. The Great Pyramid. This is referring to the Great Pyramid. According to the myth preserved in the Bible, this tower of theirs was never finished. Remember, we're waiting for the return of the chief cornerstone, the stone the builders rejected. Okay, let's see. The people of that time said, we know that in each, what is that word? That in each eon, literally every 1656 years, what? Right there. We know that in each eon, 1656 years, the vault of heaven breaks to pieces. Let therefore strong pillars be built as supports, one in the north, one in the south, one in the west. This tower here shall be a prop in the east. Let's talk about building pyramids. Pyramids were anciently called pillars of heaven. Other Jewish myth tells us a tower high enough to withstand the onrush of the waters, strong enough to resist the fire. And in the tower, let us put engines automatically discharging projectiles that kill anybody approaching to take our stronghold by storm. So this is a reference to technology. So this author is saying is what's being described as robot guns with automatic range finders and aim indicators to be used against the god armed with thunderbolts. Even if this is only a myth in the ordinary sense of the world, an idle wonder, it is unique. He's thinking some of this has to do with technology, and it could be. Their towers were the buildings of heaven-storming titans, attempting an offensive at great odds. The snow mentioned in the above passages is really wreckage from the old shattered firmament, which is professedly built, according to Ezekiel, of terrible ice. After the great flood, men were found no more. The hills and valleys were covered with a fine loam. And the loess, I don't know how to pronounce that, loess. A legacy of the dead satellite, which was recognized as being a new, unfamiliar thing. Its brownish or reddish color was taken as evidence that it was the material into which the dead had been transformed. This is like War of the Worlds. H.G. Wells, Orson Welles, War of the Worlds. Oh, excuse me. This when the alien craft ate, basically turned humans into that red mist and sprayed the whole world in red. This is what it's talking about. The Phoenix phenomenon leaves red, this red dirt and red cinnamon everywhere. So the sons of God are only men from another body of deluge survivors, probably a superior race who, roving through post-diluvian jungles, found mates in the women of a tribe that called itself the family of men. And that answers the mystery of Genesis chapter 6, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men. No less an author than Aristotle tells us in his Constitution of Tegea that the barbarous Pelasgian aborigines who inhabited Arcadia before the coming of the Hellenes quoted as their chief title to the land the fact that they were already living in it before there was a moon in the heavens. Hence, the Greeks called them Proselenians, people before the moon. In the works of Apollonius of Rhodes, we find a reference to the time when not all the orbs were yet in the heavens, when there were yet neither Danae or Deucalion's race, when only the Arcadians lived, of whom it is said that they dwelt on the hills before the moon appeared. For instance, the tribes of the Chicpas and the Muiscas, the Mazcas, who inhabited the plateau of Bogota in the eastern Cordilleras of Colombia, definitely state that they remember a time before the present moon became the companion to our world. Here are traditions from two different hemispheres that say that there was a period before the moon appeared in the sky. The Okanagan Indians have the following myth. A long time ago, when the moon was no bigger than an ordinary star, because we were on a different ecliptic, the heroine or semi-goddess Skomalt reigned. Over an island, when her subjects rebelled against her, she drove them all to a corner of her island, which she broke off and pushed into the sea. That sounds vindictive. It is generally accompanied by the hieroglyph standing for the puma, a personification of evil, an indication that they feared the moon. Thus, many people were fully prepared when the final cataclysm came and could escape death. From these survivors, a considerable number of deluge myths have come down to us. In the foregoing pages, we have repeatedly referred to the high standard of civilization of the Diluvians. They built ships to escape the Great Flood. They dwelt in cities. They reared star-pointing pyramids. They observed the heavens with minute care. Boy, that was some loud thunder there. Here's something interesting. The Mediterranean Sea was not in existence at that time. In its place, there were a number of small seas or huge lakes. I show this in Chronicon. This is why the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid are damaged. After they were built in the 29th century BC, in the 23rd century BC, the North African plate sank 270 feet. And when it did, it flooded the whole Goshen area. The whole Egyptian delta was created 340 years exactly in 1899 BC. When the whole plate came back up, the waters drained out, the Triton Sea disappeared, leaving the Sahara Desert, and the pyramids have all this water damage. It's so easy to see. So easy to see. There's even marine fossils on the Giza Plateau. And I show on my channel even the ancient legends and traditions that say that North Egypt was underwater. It's literally called, it wasn't even called Egypt at first, it was called the Raised Land. The Mediterranean must be regarded as a very young sea because of the remarkable seismic and volcanic activity which we find in its basin. The Nile carried soil from Ethiopia, by which the earth was by degrees raised above the sea and made dry and habitable. This account would be plausible if it was true that in the most ancient times, the Lower Egypt was all a sea, and that the Mediterranean and Red Sea joined. But as this is improbable, so the first inhabitants of Egypt most probably came from Phoenicia and settled in the Arabian. But it is probable. exactly by the model I just described. Let's see. It said people moved into the area as soon as the area was dry and habitable. Egypt was also anciently called Ogygia, as Stephanus of Byzantium acquaints us, and I believe that's Eustathius in his commentary on the geography of Dionysius, and Alcibiades, who was versed in all Egyptian learning, calls the most ancient inhabitants of Egypt Ogygians. It was also called Hephaestia from Vulcan, their oldest god. This is really interesting. Okay, so therefore he calls the Lower Egypt, as Hecataeus also called it, a country gained from the sea. Lower Egypt is where all the pyramids are, gained from the sea, and the gift of the Nile. That's right, guys. It's underwater. How do we not know so much about this? Because it happened in a pre-literate period, before we were writing things down. According to Plutarch, the Egyptians believed that the sun arose out of moisture, that it sprang up out of water and was nourished by it, and therefore water was the beginning and origin of things. Why? Because it's the vapor canopy. That was the last in that file. Because the sun was born after the vapor canopy collapsed. Wow, we're almost done. Okay, check this out. Moving right along. I'm getting hungry too, guys. This is the Sibylline oracles. When I allow the sacred authority of these Sibylline oracles, which I here publish as genuine, I desire it may be observed that I do so only in gross and in general, that there are, for the main, those oracles which the heathens before and after Christ and the Christians of the three first centuries allowed and quoted as genuine, without pretending to justify every distinct clause or oracle, either to be now or to have been then as it was originally written. Great imperfections, additions, interpolations, and alterations have all along been made in these, as we commonly meet within in other monuments that are of great antiquity. That's very smart. I mean, of course, he's just admitting that some, these writings have been tampered with. Okay, Isaac Vossius further says that the greatest part of the oracles were made by Christians. Anno 120. That's before Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Anno 120. If this had been true, this forgery must have been discovered in the first 400 years, but no writer ever mentioned any such thing. Celsius only accuses the oracles as interpolated, but Origen denies it. Well, Celsius was an enemy of the church. I'll give him that. Suetonius gives this account that Augustus burnt 2,000 prophecies whose authority was uncertain. That's the Greek prophecies. This was AD 1. The year 1, Anno Domini, is when those prophecies were all burned. Lactantius quotes those verses which relate to one God, and they are the same as we now read in the Sibylline books. They were common to all men, and these were the verses of the Erythrian Sibyl. But I will tell you very clearly the signs whereby you may know when the end of all things shall happen on the earth, when swords shall be seen in the night, towards sunsetting or sunrising in the starry heavens, and a dust descends from heaven suddenly upon all the earth, and the sight of the sun shall fail in the middle of its course in the heavens, and the beams of the moon shall shine, and shall pleasantly come to the earth with bloody drops. Archaix veterans, you already know what you're listening to. The sun goes dark, the moon is affected, and there's red materials falling from the sky. Enoch sees the phoenix Enoch, remember, Enoch's ministry was for the last days, not his own. Enoch sees the phoenix not in the fourth, but in the sixth heaven. And then he sees seven at the same time. Remember, in the apocalypse, which comes from the Sibylline oracles, these oracles here, the book of Revelation, that's where it derived its material from. We have the sixth seal is the phoenix seal. It's the sixth sky dragon, according to Mother Shipton. Here we find the phoenix in the book of Enoch. The phoenix is in the sixth heaven. But it's connected to the number 7. Remember, there's 7 seals in Revelation. This sixth heaven is inhabited by the angels controlling the processes of nature. Remember, Phoenix was associated to the angels. The sun and the moon, giving necessary instructions to the angels leading them. It's associated to the sun and moon, identifying Phoenix as a celestial body. Amid these angels, Enoch sees 7 phoenixes, 7 cherubs, and 7 seraphs, singing the praises of the Lord in one voice. They are called the footstool of God, whom they delight in the 7th heaven. Here, the phoenix has lost its unique character. In its multiple form, it belongs to a group of high-order angels. This same thing the Pistis Sophia material talks about, the Nag Hammadi material talks about. Sophia unleashed from the heavens, from the technologically advanced exterior of the shell for which the sim is being run inside. From outside that, Sophia unleashed an angel, watcher, observer, keeper of the calendar, and to keep the archons in check. Sophia unleashed. That's how I started the video. Sophia unleashed the phoenix. All right. An expedient which affords me a much greater prospect of having my wish accomplished, that of my works existing till the next return of the phoenix, for the more general it may be at that time, of the more benefit I hope it will prove to the then inhabitants. This guy here wrote a book about the phoenix 300 years ago, and that was his wish, that his writings would be preserved and reconveyed in the future, at least until the return of the phoenix. And this is what I'm doing. I have taken his material, showed it to you in videos, and I'm showing it again right here, and he's getting his wish fulfilled through me. I'm sharing his material on the phoenix because it's accurate. It's amazing. Seventh and last, wherein I propose to show that the comet which occasioned the foregoing catastrophe will be the cause of the general conflagration and finishing of all things with respect to this earth. So this guy here has already told us that the mechanism by which the fall of man happened, Adam and Eve reset, total destruction of the world, where Adam and Eve had to start over, he said it was the same mechanism that caused the great flood. And he said it was 3 cycles between them, which is 552 years times 3. And it's 1656 months, the pre-flood world. He said the same mechanism which caused the fall of man and the great flood of Noah is the exact same mechanism returning to initiate the book of Revelation. And he's right. The 6th seal is the return of the phoenix. And he even named it the phoenix. You can't make this shit up. Therefore, I say that this comet may, by the appointment of God from the beginning, or since this world was framed, be the destruction of this earth. And he's right, because we're waiting for the May 2040 return of the phoenix. But 138 years after that is the year 2178, the actual number of total systemic reset, going back to Genesis, year 1. My Archaix veterans know exactly what I'm talking about. And for those just catching under the video right now, you have to understand this massive corpus of material that I'm sharing with you today is all additional things that were found long after my Phoenix thesis was already published in 3 books. This is all new material. Share it on my YouTube channel. So this is the in the Edda We have what's called the spilling song. It's the prelude to the end. I always found it really interesting that the Norse have this poem that's a prophecy about the end of the world, and it's called the spilling song, and it details like mud and rain and stuff falling from the sky. I wonder where they got that idea. In the apocalypse, a myth has been preserved, which tells us that there was a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. Wow. The sea's going to drain away somewhere else. Taking everything into consideration, we get the impression that the apocalypticians, that's an awesome word, the apocalypticians did not invent the cosmological skeleton of their stories, but based them on popular traditions of great antiquity. Their descriptions are too grand, too lofty, too logical, too clear to be merely the outcome of imagination. Well, very well said. These are the signs of the end of the world. At the end of the millennium, a sword appearing in the night, a dust falling from heaven, a dust falling from heaven. The light of the sun failing at noon, the bloody color of the moon. What? That's the Sibylline oracles, my friends. The Sibylline oracle said that. So close to the ancient Ragnarok. Right here's the Ragnarok. There is in the legends of the Scandinavians a marvelous record of the coming of the comet. Remember, back when these books were written, comet meant anything that wasn't the sun or moon. It has been repeated generation after generation, translated into all the languages, commented on, criticized, but never understood. It has been regarded as a wild, unmeaning rhapsody of words or as a premonition of some future catastrophe. But look at it. The very name is significant. According to Professor Anderson's etymology of the word, it means the darkness of the gods, from Regin, gods, and Roker, darkness, but it may more properly be derived from the Icelandic, Danish, and Swedish regen, or rain, and rock, which means smoke or dust. And it may mean the rain of dust, for the clay came first as the dust. What? What? The dust of the gods, the phoenix fallout. I just recently watched Night of the Comet again, and it just shocked me that I had missed it. But there's an Easter egg in the beginning of the movie because it's about the comet appears and everybody who's exposed outside and who's above ground turns to red dust and all their clothes just fall down and all the world's depopulated. But the people inside metal buildings and underground, they survive. But on an abandoned building on the back of a door, the cameraman just sweeps and he just pans around and you see a Clark Gable movie called Red Dust on the back of the door. It's in the beginning of Night of the Comet from 1984. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Red Dust, Clark Gable. The world is ripened for destruction, and Ragnarok, the darkness of the gods, or the rain of dust and ashes, comes to complete work. Then happens that which will seem a great miracle, that the wolf devours the sun, and this will seem a great loss. That is, the comet strikes the sun or approaches so close to it that it seems to do so. The other wolf devours the moon. These are the two sky dragons. Devours the moon, and this too will cause great mischief. We have seen that the comets often come in couples or triplets. The stars shall be hurled from the heavens. Mountains will topple down, and all bonds and fetters will be broken and snapped. This is what the sixth seal of Revelation says as well. Chaos has come again. How closely does all this agree with Hesiod's description of the shaking earth and universal conflict of nature? The Fenris wolf gets loose. This, we shall see, is the name of one of the comets, Fenris. thing, fiend, Fenrir. It's all Phoenix related. The sea rushes over the earth, for the Midgard serpent writhes in giant rage and seeks to gain the land. The Midgard serpent vomits forth venom, defiling all the air in the sea. He is very terrible and places himself side by side with the wolf, Nemesis X object. The Nemesis X object's venom is called wormwood in the book of Revelation, and it kills 1/3 of mankind. The two comets move together like Bala's two fragments, and they give out poison, the carbureted hydrogen gas revealed by the spectroscope. That's just creative license. In the midst of this clash and din, the heavens are rent in twain, and the sons of Muspelheim come riding through the opening. In the book of Revelation, 200 million locust demons come riding forth. In the Mayan long count, at the end of the 13 Bactans in 2046, in 2046 AD, the 13 heavens collapse. A gate to the underworld is open, and an invasion of demons occurs. It's all the same story in eschatology. Muspelheim, according to Professor Anderson, means the day of judgment. Muspel signifies an abode of fire peopled by fiends, so that this passage means that the heavens are split open, or appear to be, by the great shining comet. Surt rides first, and before him and after him flames burning fire. Surt is a demon associated with the comet. He is the same as the destructive god of the Egyptian mythology, Set, who destroys the sun. Typhon is Set, the phoenix. It may mean the blazing nucleus of a comet. The Edda may be interpreted to mean that the comet strikes the planet west of Europe and crushes down some land in that quarter called the Bridge of Bifrost. There are interpreters who claim that the Bridge of Bifrost passes over to North America. David Davidson was convinced that North America is going to be hit by a comet. Matter of fact, I believe that's also the message of Edgar Casey. Nostradamus says that the entire Western world will die, and he dates that at 2046. The Elder Edda says, speaking of the Fenris wolf, Phoenix, it feeds on the bodies of men when they die, the seats of the gods. It stains with red blood. Cinnamon. Ragnarok. This probably refers to the iron-stained red clay cast down by the comet over a large part of the earth. The seats of the gods means the home of the godlike race, which was doubtless covered, like Europe and America, with red clay. The waters which ran from it must have been the color of blood. And we, my friends, have absolutely finished this entire presentation. Oh my God. 3 hours and 35 minutes. Whoa! I gotta eat. I survived drinking this and a cup of coffee. My bladder is a beast. But yeah, anybody new to my channel, do not assume that this presentation is covering my thesis. It does not. This is all additional material. My Archaix veterans listening to this video know that all these quotes, all these clips just support a thesis that's already been published for 20 years in my books. But yeah, this marathon was necessary. Just needed to get all that out. I'm glad I got it. I got it all. I'm glad I got it all in one. But yeah, I need to go, and I need to go right now. And we're gonna hear one more message, and I'm gonna check out. I love you guys.
Your soul's awakening with hypnotherapy. Resolve trauma and complete shadow work in a fraction of the time with significantly less effort. Align your heart's wisdom with your mind's knowledge to be whole and complete. Fulfill your soul's mission to know thyself and exit the matrix. Embody your limitless self with the limitless hypnosis. Call or text +1 702 475 0764.